Chapter 3197. Both could control storms, lightning, seawater, and fire. Plus, their bodies were almost indestructible and powerful. As a result, the battle was still in a stalemate until now. Even Jormungandr had to admit, the human before him was even stronger and more difficult to deal with than Gaia. If it was before he devoured Gaia, Jormungandr had no doubt that if he fought Chun Zhao carelessly, the consequences would be very, very serious. Jormungandr's huge head rammed toward Chun Zhao. In the end, Chun Zhao didn't fly away. Instead, he was the first to get dizzy. He had to admit that he wasn't as stubborn as Chun Zhao. By now, the fourth island had turned into nothing. It wasn't just the fourth island. All 7 islands had collapsed. Gaia and the others were in the air. But even in the air, it wasn't safe. The impact of Chun Zhao and Jormungandr's battle had already affected them. Even though Gaia was very far away, both of them were existences that surpassed the god race. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that their battle had destroyed the world. Only now did old Ankh, Robert, Farmalati, and Aikili truly realize. How terrifying was Chun Zhao? He wasn't at a disadvantage when fighting Jormungandr. Even Gaia had been torn apart by Jormungandr. The airflow within hundreds of kilometers had completely lost stability. It was like a washing machine, wantonly displaying terrifying power. If they got any closer, it wouldn't be a washing machine anymore. It'd be a meat grinder. Mr. Chun, can he win? Old Ankh asked worriedly. Gaia wasn't confident either, but she still said, "Don't worry. No one can defeat Chun, not even God." However, Jormungandr was really too strong. Unreasonably strong. But right now, Jormungandr also felt that Chun Zhao was unreasonably strong. Humans, stop. There'll be no end to this battle. You should already understand that you can't do anything to me, and I can't do anything to you. Jormungandr gave Chun Zhao a way out first. But what he got in return was Chun Zhao's cold smile. Since they had already fought to this point, how could there be any leeway to turn back? If he stopped now, Jormungandr would have to run to Earth. By then, he would swallow Earth's source. Even Chun Zhao probably couldn't do anything to him anymore. If they wanted to fight, they would continue to fight. They would not hesitate to shatter this world. Moreover, if this world was destroyed, Jormungandr would definitely lose. Devouring Gaia's source also meant that he was bound to this world. Therefore, the one who should be worried now was not him, but Jormungandr. They seemed to be in a stalemate. However, their battle would definitely affect the entire world. Jormungandr was naturally unwilling to take the risk of damaging his own origin. But Chun Zhao didn't have such concerns. Chun Zhao could destroy as much as he wanted. It wasn't his house anyway. We've only fought for a short while. Could it be that you can't hold on anymore? Looks like you can't last long enough. Chun Zhao looked at Jormungandr mockingly. Jormungandr was furious. If it was someone else, he would have taught them a lesson in minutes. But since Chun Zhao had said this, there was really nothing he could do. No, it's not like there's no other way. This was his source world. Of course he had a way. It looked like he was in a passive position now, but that was because he didn't want to hurt his source. But at the same time, he could also mobilize the origin of this world. This was something Chun Zhao couldn't compare to. He could infinitely increase his power, but Chun Zhao couldn't. You should know the consequences of angering me, Jormungandr said. Stop here, or both of us will be injured. Chun Zhao smiled. I want to experience the so-called consequences. Golden light flashed on Jormungandr's body. He was mobilizing the source of the world to strengthen himself. But just then, Chun Zhao's body also started flashing with golden light. The light was the same as Jormungandr's. Jormungandr's expression changed. How is this possible? How could he mobilize the source of the world? No, he wasn't mobilizing the source of the world. Jormungandr looked at Chun Zhao in shock. What was going on? Where did he get the source of the world from? Chun Zhao didn't have so many questions. He was trying to mobilize the source of his inner world. This was the power he'd comprehended from the Green Key, the 6th level of the primordial regression technique, source form. Unlike Jormungandr, who needed to be in his source world to mobilize the source, Chun Zhao carried it with him. He didn't need to be restricted by geography at all. Another thing was that Chun Zhao's inner world had formed a perfect cycle. In other words, Chun Zhao truly had infinite power. Gaia was far from reaching the ascension level, so her source world obviously didn't have a circulation system for source energy. Gaia's original world still needed to be replenished. Then, Jormungandr devoured Gaia's source. It was even more impossible for him to create a perfect cycle. This was the difference between the two. They seemed to be on the same level now, but they weren't really on the same level. Jormungandr thought that he had infinite power. This was because his power came from this world. For a normal person, the power of a world was infinite. But their opponent was Chun Zhao. The energy they used every moment was astronomical. At this level of consumption, even the energy of an entire world might not be enough for them to squander. Then, let the second round begin. Chun Zhao raised his arm. The golden world expanded wildly, forming a golden spherical world. In the past, Chun Zhao's world didn't have any substance. As long as Chun Zhao didn't activate it, there was almost no way to detect it. But now, Chun Zhao's world seemed to be real. Jormungandr also spread out his own golden domain. Both golden domains were shockingly large, reaching hundreds of kilometers. They collided with each other, neither retreating. The seawater was forced back by their terrifying power. The dry seabed was revealed. The seabed was torn apart and magma spewed out. Gaia and the others were stunned. This had surpassed the stage of magic. No power or greatness could describe this battle. This was a battle of gods. Chun Zhao raised a hand, and a dozen golden neutron stars appeared in the sky. Each golden neutron star had a mass of billions of tons. Chun Zhao released his arm, and the golden neutron stars fell with destructive power. Jormungandr could block one golden neutron star, but he couldn't block all of them. The golden neutron stars landed on the ground, instantly evaporating the seawater. Jormungandr was furious because Chun Zhao had already started destroying the world. Chun Zhao wanted to take drastic measures and destroy his foundation. Chapter 3198. Stop right there. Jormungandr opened his bloody mouth and spat out a golden lightning pillar. Chun Zhao quickly dodged Jormungandr's golden lightning pillar. The golden lightning pillar streaked across the sky, tearing it apart. In the natural world, the bigger the body, the more powerful it was. It was an advantage in natural survival. But when the two were equal in strength, the smaller the body, the more advantageous it was. For example, mountain cats could easily kill sheep 3 times their size. Right now, Chun Zhao was that predator. It was too difficult for Jormungandr to hit an enemy with Chun Zhao's size. But he had to take all of Chun Zhao's attacks. The balance of the war was already tilting. Stop! Chun Zhao casually summoned a dozen more golden neutron stars. These golden neutron stars could only be used in the current origin state. They were far more powerful than normal neutron stars. Even the dark red neutron star couldn't compare. Although it was Chun Zhao's first time using them, he could do as he pleased. Chun Zhao used them as if they were instinctive. Back then, Chun Zhao had practiced tens of thousands of times before barely grasping the dark red neutron star. But after receiving the Green Key's legacy, Chun Zhao's usage of Ascendance-level power had reached an unimaginable level. It was no longer a skill. It was instinct. The golden neutron stars shot toward Jormungandr, but they were all blocked by Jormungandr's golden domain. Then, there was a violent explosion. But such a powerful explosion didn't damage Jormungandr's golden domain at all. Jormungandr's golden domain clashed with Chun Zhao's. It was like 2 glass beads colliding. Neither could break through the other's domain. Chun Zhao created more golden neutron stars. This time, he created more than 100. Boom, boom, boom. The entire world was covered in golden light. But the golden light didn't represent peace and harmony. Instead, it was filled with destructive power. It was still unharmed. Chun Zhao pouted. It seemed like he couldn't shatter the opponent's world when his origin was intact. At least, he couldn't do it now. Chun Zhao appeared beside Gaia. He reached out and patted Gaia's dragon head. Chun, what's going on? Fly as high as you can, Chun Zhao said. Don't hesitate. Don't stop. Gaia's body was also emitting a golden glow. Chun Zhao gave a sliver of his origin to Gaia. It wasn't much, but it was enough to protect Gaia. As for the people on Gaia's back, they could only pray for their own good fortune. If Gaia was fine, they should be fine. With that, he disappeared from Gaia's side. In the blink of an eye, Chun Zhao was at an altitude of 500 miles. He looked down at Jormungandr. Jormungandr looked up at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao raised his hand, and a golden celestial body appeared above his head. A meteorite with a diameter of more than 50 kilometers. Jormungandr realized what Chun Zhao was going to do. He was also on full alert. If he allowed this golden celestial body to fall to the ground, his origin would be severely damaged. Therefore, no matter what price he had to pay, he had to block this golden celestial body. A smile surfaced on Chun Zhao's face. He raised his right arm high and looked down at Jormungandr. You have to catch it, otherwise I'll score. Human, there's no need to play tricks like that. I can block that move even with my eyes closed. Really? Chun Zhao let go of his arm. The golden celestial body fell at a shocking speed. Jormungandr's body coiled up. His golden domain was also as dazzling as gold. Chun Zhao pointed a finger at Jormungandr and grabbed. Suddenly, Jormungandr's body froze. With his pause, the golden celestial body had already streaked past his face. How is this possible? Boom! The collision between the golden sky and the ground created a golden wave. Jormungandr spat out a mouthful of blood. His golden domain also shattered in an instant. Then, another golden celestial body smashed into Jormungandr's body. This golden celestial body followed the first one. It was slightly smaller than the first golden celestial body. It used the first golden celestial body to hide itself. Moreover, the second golden celestial body wasn't used to attack the world. Instead, it aimed at Jormungandr. Half of Jormungandr's body was destroyed. Jormungandr lay on the ground in pain. However, he couldn't care about repairing his damaged body. He hurriedly covered the golden domain again. He didn't want Chun Zhao to take the opportunity to attack him again. How is this possible? How'd you do it? Jormungandr was furious. How could Chun Zhao freeze his movement from a distance? Although it was only for an instant, Jormungandr was still shocked and furious. Just then, a bit of black lava seeped out of the wound on Jormungandr's body. Jormungandr didn't even dream that after he swallowed Becky Lou Lisha. At the same time, he also swallowed the black lava in Becky Lou Lisha's body. From the beginning, Chun Zhao had buried his evil intentions in Becky Lou Lisha's body. His target wasn't her. Instead, it was for his ultimate goal, Jormungandr. This bit of black lava was barely a threat to Jormungandr, and it could only be used once. Right now, half the world had turned into hell. The shockwave was still spreading to the entire world. Gaia couldn't help but look down. Right now, she and everyone else could only see the scene of the end of the world. It was a true scene of the end of the world. Nothing could be more real than this. It was more impactful than the end of any movie. Chun Zhao looked down at Jormungandr. He didn't stop Jormungandr from supporting the golden domain again, because this was also his plan. Just then, two more golden, celestial bodies appeared in the sky. They were even larger than before. This was also Chun Zhao's limit. The two golden, celestial bodies fell in two different directions. Jormungandr was extremely shocked and furious. Right now, he couldn't care less about his injuries. He crashed into one of the golden, celestial bodies. The golden celestial body was knocked out of its original trajectory. He wanted to use his tail to sweep away the second golden celestial body. But suddenly, he realized that he only had half his body left. He couldn't use his tail at all. He could only watch as the second golden celestial body crashed into the ground. Jormungandr spat out blood again. His golden domain collapsed again. Chun Zhao formed two more golden celestial bodies. Roar! Jormungandr roared at the sky. Human, don't play tricks when you fight me face to face. This is war, little friend. Chun Zhao released his arm again. Jormungandr was in extreme pain. He tried his best to save him, but it was too late. The two golden celestial bodies crashed down, a crack that was thousands of kilometers long spread out. Jormungandr supported the golden domain again. However, his golden domain had become much thinner, and it was obvious that it was very unstable. Chapter 3199. Chun Zhao looked down at Jormungandr. "This is the consequence of taking other people's things," Chun Zhao said mockingly. "Roar! You haven't won yet." "Really?" Chun Zhao raised his hand again. Hundreds of small golden, celestial bodies appeared above his head. Although they were small, they were still a few kilometers in diameter. "Right now, you can't stop me from doing anything." Although the hundreds of golden celestial bodies were unable to cause apocalyptic destruction like the previous large golden celestial bodies, they were still powerful enough to destroy the Armageddon. However, it still possessed astonishing destructive power. Hundreds of golden lights descended. Jormungandr shot out a golden lightning pillar from his mouth. Only half of the smaller golden bodies were destroyed. More than half of the golden celestial bodies still bombarded the ground. Jormungandr was finally unable to maintain the golden domain. Chun Zhao also retracted his golden domain. He landed in front of Jormungandr. Jormungandr's body had yet to fully recover. "The third round begins now. Roar!" Jormungandr roared and charged at Jin Si. Jin Si also rushed towards Jormungandr. The brutal hand-to-hand combat began. Gaia and the others were currently high up in the sky. They witnessed the goddess Gaia being torn apart by Jormungandr. And now, they witnessed Jormungandr being torn apart by Chun Zhao. Piece by piece, the flesh was torn off. In terms of brutality, Chun Zhao was no worse than Jormungandr. That scene was simply too exciting. During this process, the black substance constantly shuttled through Jormungandr's broken body. At this moment, the golden light on Gaia's body separated and transformed into a golden figure. Although he had no facial features, he could tell from his figure that it was Chun Zhao. "Chun?" Gaia was stunned. "Aren't you going to eat a piece? That's the flesh of the world snake. You should be able to digest it." At this moment, a huge piece of flesh fell below Gaia. When it landed on the boiling hot ground, it actually emitted a rich meaty aroma. Old Ankh and the others drooled. Can we eat it?" "Feel free if you're not afraid of being stuffed to death," Chun Zhao said casually. "Without a strong digestive system, you'll explode if you eat it." Everyone thought about it and gave up on the idea. Gaia saw Chun encouraging her. She didn't need to worry about anything. Everyone was envious that Gaia had a friend like Chun Zhao. If anything happened, Chun Zhao would help her. However, the battle in the distance had yet to end. Or rather, the tyranny was not over yet. Jormungandr's life force was extremely tenacious. In fact, as long as his origin wasn't completely taken away, as long as this world was not completely destroyed, he would never truly die. Of course, he did it on purpose. Chun Zhao didn't plan on devouring the origin of this world. He did not want to be like Jormungandr, bound to this world. Chun Zhao only devoured Jormungandr's flesh essence. He kept absorbing the origin energy from the world origin to repair his body. Then Chun Zhao would take the essence of his flesh and blood, as well as his life force. At this moment, Jormungandr was a converter. Rather than saying that Chun Zhao was stealing Jormungandr's essence, it was more like he was stealing the essence of the world. Chun Zhao fused the excess power into his inner world. Jormungandr realized what Chun Zhao wanted to do, but there was nothing he could do. One wrong step, and every step would be wrong. Chun Zhao wouldn't give him a chance to turn the tables. In the beginning, Jormungandr was unwilling. He was looking for every opportunity to turn the tables. In the end, he gave up completely. But now, the initiative was no longer in his hands. It was difficult for him to die, even if he wanted to. The dark magma had completely spread to every corner of his body. It kept destroying his functions, but it couldn't kill him completely. This feeling was too painful. The dark magma kept returning to Chun Zhao's body, returning a large amount of essence to him. At the same time, more dark magma surged out of Chun Zhao's body and seeped into Jormungandr's. Jormungandr knew that Chun Zhao wouldn't stop until he and the world were drained dry. What Chun Zhao did was crueler than him. He had stolen the origin of this world from Gaia. Chun Zhao, on the other hand, crushed it, turned it into his own power, and then devoured it. Although their actions were essentially the same, the process was crueler. If possible, Jormungandr wanted to treat Gaia like Chun Zhao did. But he didn't have an inner world that could contain such a large amount of essence. At most, he could only do the same things as Gaia and grasp the same power. Jormungandr didn't fundamentally surpass Gaia. This was also the fundamental difference between him and Chun Zhao, because from the beginning to the end, they were standing at different heights. This was the true reason why he lost. Even if Chun Zhao didn't use the dark magma, Jormungandr's defeat was only a matter of time, because his weakness had always been exposed to Chun Zhao. Unless one day, he could merge the world's origin into his body and turn it into his own inner world. But he had no chance. Chun Zhao wouldn't give him this chance. Rather than violence, it would be more accurate to say that it was a gluttonous feast. Chun Zhao didn't even let Jormungandr's soul go. He didn't even leave bones behind. Jormungandr's soul was very strong. Even without a body, his soul was as strong as a god's. But in Chun Zhao's eyes, this strength was meaningless. Even at his peak, he wasn't Chun Zhao's match. After losing his body, he couldn't threaten Chun Zhao at all. This world had completely become a dead planet. Chun Zhao didn't pity Gaia. They weren't on the same side. He, Jormungandr, and Gaia could be said to be on three different sides. In the first battle between Jormungandr and Gaia, if Gaia was the winner, she would probably have to fight Chun Zhao too. Chun Zhao was quite glad that it was Jormungandr who won. Jormungandr's control of power and the world's origin was definitely not as good as Gaia's. If it was Gaia, the battle wouldn't have ended so easily. After completely defeating Jormungandr, Chun Zhao opened a spatial crack with Gaia and the others. They were in an unfamiliar sea. Just then, Chun Zhao found a huge beast floating below. Leviathan. However, Leviathan was already dead by then. It was the entrance to that world and the incarnation of Gaia. Gaia was dead, so it naturally died with her. But it was still full of treasures. Chun Zhao put Leviathan away. Everyone sighed. This adventure was finally over. But this adventure had brought them quite a lot. Chun Zhao found the treasure left by the Pirate King. But because of the battle between Chun Zhao and Jormungandr, the treasure was almost destroyed. Because of the battle between Chun Zhao and Jormungandr, it was almost destroyed. But even though it was less than 20%, it was still a shocking amount. Chapter 3200. Even if this wealth was split among everyone, it would still be shocking. Of course, Chun Zhao would get more. Preliminary calculations showed that it was worth more than $2 billion. Although Chun Zhao got most of it, no one objected. But no one objected. What a joke. Anyone who disagreed with Chun Zhao now would only be looking for trouble. Chun Zhao could take them back to the mainland. Chun Zhao could take them back to the mainland. But they'd come out with Becky Lalisa. If they went back and Becky Lalisa went missing, it would still be quite troublesome. Even Chun Zhao couldn't avoid it. So, Chun Zhao didn't plan to fly back directly. Instead, he called West and asked him to make the necessary arrangements. Mr. Chun, if you need anything in the future, just find me. Old Ankh wanted to be related to Chun Zhao now. Robert, Farmalati, and Achilles all rolled their eyes secretly. Of course they knew what old Ankh was thinking. Actually, they had similar thoughts too, but they were too embarrassed to say it. If I really need anything, I'll find you. Chun Zhao didn't reject old Ankh. Of course, it was more likely that they'd never talk to each other again after going back. As for whether they'd talk nonsense, they had to have the courage to do so. They stayed on the island for a day. The next day, West brought a boat. After everyone boarded, they all heaved a long sigh of relief. West, how's your arrangement? It's done, West said. You and Becky Lalisa were attacked by magical beasts at sea. Most people died. You're the survivors. Yeah, that's more like it. Chun Zhao nodded. Everyone boarded the boat and returned to the coastal waters. An unfamiliar boat suddenly appeared before them. Logically speaking, it was very likely that they'd encounter other boats in the coastal waters. They shouldn't have any other thoughts. However, the boat was very conspicuous. It was completely painted black. It didn't look like a normal boat either. Instead, its entire body was radiating light, making it look like a bullet. Everyone looked at it. Their first impression was that it wasn't a normal boat, and that black ship was coming for them. Just then, a Gaia opened on the top of the boat, and a cannon rose. Yazha cannon. West frowned. "They're from Repulse Bay," said Milady. West was surprised. "President, are you related to the people of Shallow Water Bay?" "Yes, there was a conflict with the people of Repulse Bay during this operation." Familati was quite familiar with Shallow Water Bay. If it was in the past, she would definitely not want to provoke Shallow Water Bay. It was very troublesome to be enemies with Shallow Water Bay. But now she was not worried at all. These people had come to cause trouble for Chun Zhao. He was really tired of living. Sure enough, the battle ended after 20 minutes. It was an uneventful battle. If it wasn't to keep them alive, they wouldn't have needed 20 minutes. Perhaps it was only a minute or a second. Chun Zhao wasn't interested in how West and the others interrogated the Repulse Bay members. West had a way of making them talk. Not long after, the interrogation ended. The members of Shallow Water Bay were all villains of the supernatural world, but they were definitely not warriors. Not to mention loyalty. That was why West didn't use much torture before they confessed everything. Shallow Water Bay was an American supernatural organization, but they didn't train spiritualists. They only accepted spiritualists who had been expelled from their original organizations. So the members of Shallow Water Bay were very mixed. The organization's internal structure was rather loose. Apart from being members of Shallow Water Bay, most of the members had a second or third identity. There was a headquarters, but it was just a few insignificant people. Apart from a few low-level members who stayed behind, the other members mostly maintained their identities on the surface. They would only gather when there was a mission or when there were benefits to be gained. They attacked Chunjiao because of Xianzhang's information. Before the ocean-going ship was swallowed by Leviathan, Xianzhang had already spread the news. Before Shallow Water Bay attacked, they even specially investigated Chun Zhao's identity. They realized that Chun Zhao was actually rich, a very, very rich person. So this time, they acted under the name of taking revenge for Xianzhang. However, all the members who participated actually had the thought of making a huge sum of money. They probably couldn't imagine what kind of person they wanted to deal with. "President, do we kill them all or lock them up? Bring them back and lock them up for a while. Let them leave their magic behind." This was the habit of the supernatural organization. Every time they caught a spiritualist, they would first leave a magic record. This was to strengthen the organization's foundation. Although they started late, they were developing very quickly. What about Shallow Water Bay? Give me the information about Shallow Water Bay. I'll warn their boss. "President, I have some information about the Magic High School that appeared in San Francisco last time." "Is that Magic High School reliable?" "It's hard to say, Garp," West said helplessly. West said helplessly. There are 3 founders of the Sorcerer's High School. Before the Spirit Tide, they were all mediocre in the spirit world. I don't know if they were influenced by the Spirit Tide and stimulated their potential. Compared to before the Spirit Tide, they're very powerful now. Also, the source of the funds they used to build the school is unknown. In other words, there's something wrong with them. They don't participate in the management and teaching of the school. They seem to treat this as an investment. I've personally interacted with them and didn't find any unclean magic on them. Secondly, the teachers in the school vary in strength, but they are all ordinary spiritualists. We can find out where they come from. Other than the high tuition fees, there's nothing to criticize. School has already started, and the school has recruited about 200 young students. Maybe because of the Harry Potter movie, the students all treat Magic High Schools as Hogwarts. What about the environment in the school? Are there any hidden dangers? I didn't find any traces of dangerous magic in the school either. What about the professor's classes? What's the specific content? The main subject is magic. There are practical courses and theoretical courses. Currently, there are 4 subjects: enhancement, elemental, curse, and nature. Chapter 3201. Does the government allow this magic school to exist? No. I don't know what kind of agreement the school has with the government, but at least the school isn't being obstructed or troubled by the government. Wes paused and then said, or the school itself is connected to the government. Since he confirmed that there was nothing sinister about the magic school, Chun Zhao relaxed. As for the connection with the government, Chun Zhao didn't care too much. Chun Zhao didn't care too much about this. Being connected to the government made him feel more at ease. After all, the government was synonymous with safety most of the time. After returning home, Chun Zhao prepared gifts for everyone in the house. These gifts were all taken from the treasures of Treasure Island. They were all ordinary items, but they could be sold for a shocking price in an auction house. The next day, when Frigga came to teach little Gerlin and Larissa, Chun Zhao handed Frigga a pendant. Chun Zhao gave Frigga a pendant. Ms. Frigga, this is for you. When Frigga saw the pendant, her eyes flashed with surprise. Is Jormungandr dead? Yes, he is. Frigga didn't ask about the process. This result was a bit surprising, but it was reasonable. After all, everyone knew how powerful this human was. Now, only she and Bader were still alive among the Norse gods. Of course, this was referring to people with names. Actually, there were still some Norse gods who weren't that famous. Most of the powerful gods obeyed the rules of the human race. They hid among the humans incognito. Frigga sighed with emotion. Jormungandr was the strongest among the Norse gods. Although he was Loki's child, Jormungandr was far more powerful than Loki. But even Jormungandr couldn't escape from Chun Zhao's clutches in the end. Frigga wasn't sad about this, though. After all, even when Jormungandr was alive, he didn't have a good relationship with her. After all, Jormungandr was a general in the Dust camp. But she was the queen of Odin's camp. Lady Frigga, can I ask you a question? What kind? Education. Go ahead. Diddla wants to go to magic school to learn magic. What do you think? Should I agree to her request? Why are you hesitating? Frigga asked. If it's just for magic knowledge, Chun Zhao said, I can provide much more than the school. But what the school can provide is far more than just magic knowledge. Magic requires communication, Frigg said. Under the same conditions, the one who communicates is destined to have an easier time learning magic than the one who imparts magic knowledge privately. In other words, you approve of her enrollment? Of course, it's not just her. I think the future Gerlin and Larissa should also go to that school. Chun Zhao chuckled. I thought you would say that the knowledge taught in mortal schools is definitely not as good as your magic knowledge. This depends on the upper limit of Didi's talent. If the magic knowledge taught by the school can reach her upper limit, then I believe that no one will be better than me in learning after the upper limit. But before the upper limit, there won't be too much of a gap between the knowledge taught by the school and me. In fact, the atmosphere is very important in learning any kind of knowledge. This is also why human children, even if their families are rich, still choose to enter the school rather than hire a tutor. Then you won't be able to show your value. You're Gerlin and Larissa's private tutor now. They're different. I'm only giving them the basics now. Also, no school can teach them the upper limit of their talent. Just then, Stephen's car arrived. Chun Zhao went to the door to welcome him. Stephen, why are you here? To borrow money, Stephen said straightforwardly. Huh, you didn't solve the financial crisis last time? Chun Zhao remembered that Stephen had organized an auction when he'd had a financial crisis. Some items were sold at high prices, but when Chun Zhao asked, Stephen said that he'd already solved the problem. I thought I solved it, Stephen said helplessly. Then can you tell me about it? I invested in a company, and now I have absolute control of the company. However, the company's financial situation is not ideal, and it is still burning money. Once the continuous investment is interrupted, then the nearly $1 billion I have invested will be wasted. What company? Logically speaking, Stephen knew financial rules and order better than Chun Zhao. He also knew the risks of the financial industry, so Chun Zhao didn't have to remind him. However, the more knowledgeable you were about finance, the deeper you'd sink if you got greedy. It's not a normal company. What industry is it in? Or does it produce something? This company is not a regular company, Stephen said awkwardly. What kind of company is it? Stephen thought for a moment and said, "It researches alchemy." Chen Zhao frowned. "Stephen, are you looking to die? You know nothing about the spiritual world or magic world. How dare you invest in alchemy? Can you tell the types and effects of alchemy?" Stephen didn't say anything. He just sat there with his head lowered. "How much money do you need?" In the end, Chen Zhao decided to lend Stephen the money. No matter what, just Stephen's name was worth $1 billion. If it were someone else, Chen Zhao wouldn't lend him money. But Stephen was different. He definitely had the ability to repay. The company is currently researching a magic potion to regrow severed limbs. Chen Zhao suddenly turned around and looked at Stephen. A potion that could recover the body in a short time could be sold for at least $1 million on the black market in the spiritual world. This kind of alchemy potion was also extremely expensive in the spiritual world. Stephen's company actually wanted to research such a potion. First of all, the raw materials needed to make the potion would cost millions. This meant that any one of their research department's research would cost millions. This meant that even Chen Zhao might not be able to afford such an expensive company. The most important thing was, so what if they managed to figure out there were already such alchemy potions in the spiritual world? This company was researching other people's products that were already mature. At this time, their alchemy would definitely not be able to compete with other people's products, unless Stephen wanted to reduce the cost and price of the potion to a few $1,000s. But was that possible? Chapter 3202. Do you know that such potions have existed in the spiritual world for a long time? Chen Zhao asked. I know. I think that if we combine science and magic, we might be able to make the potion at a lower cost. Chen Zhao was speechless. He looked at Stephen. Did the person in charge of the company tell you this? Yes. Is there a problem? You're a typical expert trying to trick a layman. Can you even find the person? I've been tricked. You know that alchemy and magic all have magic formulas. When the raw materials are combined, they form a magic circuit or a magic formation. You can replace magic with magic, but it's impossible to replace magic with science right now. It's like how cars need gasoline. Current technology can't replace gasoline with water. Maybe it'll be possible in a few hundred or a few thousand years, but definitely not now. Stephen's expression grew more and more ugly. But they only buy expensive raw materials. I've seen their accounts. Do you have their accounts? Stephen thought for a moment. Then he took out a printed account and handed it to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao glanced at it and said, "Wait here for a moment." A few minutes later, Chen Zhao returned with 2 plants. Do you recognize these 2 plants? Stephen looked at the 2 identical plants, confused. I'm not a botanist. One of them is the fierce heart grass on the account. It's one of the main ingredients of the arm regrowth potion. It's worth around $500,000 on the market. What about this one? Isn't it also fierce heart grass? No, it's just a regular plant. It's called white rose. They're almost the same. Yes, only people who use magic can tell the difference, Chen Zhao said. That's what the company you control uses to trick investors like you, or rather, suckers. Chen Zhao paused. They're colluding with the raw materials, or they're in cahoots. Also, if you want to participate in the market for the arm regrowth potion, you need to find an alchemist. Find a few reliable alchemists and form a research team, not a company with unknown qualifications. Chen Zhao didn't need to say the rest. With Stephen's business knowledge, he already knew. Once the crux of the matter was pointed out, many doubtful points would turn into proofs. How much did you invest? Chen Zhao asked. The total investment is about $1 billion US. In fact, Stephen's loss was more than $3 billion US if he included the mortgage and the like. Where's their company located? In Las Vegas New Magic Technology. Have you evaluated their company? Yes, I've looked into it beforehand, and I've also seen their clinical trials. Clinical trials are useless. They can buy a bottle of real medicine from the market in advance. For a layman like you, this kind of experiment is indeed very shocking. Or, there's another method that is more economical. Perhaps they are looking for a spiritualist with powerful regeneration abilities, such as this. With that, Chen Zhao cut his finger. The wound on his finger healed at a visible speed. Stephen slumped onto the sofa. He couldn't accept the fact that he had invested all his fortune into a group of swindlers. One had to know that Stephen was an investment expert himself. Back then, Stephen had even helped Chun Zhao deal with some financial problems. Now, Chun Zhao couldn't just ignore Stephen's situation. Let's go. Take me to see those swindlers. Let's see how much we can recover. No, we're not calling the police. Stephen asked, stunned. How much do you think the police can help you recover? Or can the police handle spiritualists? Can you? Let magic solve magic's problems. Chun Zhao also called West and asked him to gather the members who weren't on missions. From Stephen's description, the company had quite a lot of people. If Chun Zhao was alone, there would inevitably be some who slipped through the net. He had to catch them all at once. A group of people arrived in Las Vegas in a grandiose manner. Stephen's face was filled with worry. After all, he had gambled almost all of his fortune on this operation. He had considered many solutions. Calling the police was one. Or he could have a showdown and negotiate with them. If he couldn't get the money back, he would basically have to file for bankruptcy. Or he could borrow more money from Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao couldn't guarantee anything. After all, the money was in the bank. He didn't know how many accounts it had been split into. If he wanted to recover the money, he could only arrest all the people involved in the scam. Stephen gave Chun Zhao a list of everyone he knew. Then, Chun Zhao would arrange the arrests. Under the night sky, Chun Zhao and Stephen arrived before a villa. Mr. Aller, where are you now? Mr. Stephen, what's up? I'm here to talk about the follow-up investment. Oh, I see. I'm at home. Do you want to come? Or we can talk at the company tomorrow. I'm at your door, Stephen said. Just then, the door to the villa opened. Chun Zhao and Stephen walked in. They saw Allor in the living room. Chun Zhao glanced at Allor. He looked like an elite in the workplace. Even though he was wearing casual clothes at home, he still gave off a decent vibe. Mr. Stephen, who's this? My friend, Stephen said. You can call him Chun. Oh, he's in the same industry as you. Hello, Mr. Chun. Allor was surprised, but he was still calm. He shook Chun Zhao's hand. Mr. Stephen, what do you want to talk about this time? I wanted a vest, Stephen said. Divest? Why? Allor looked at Chun Zhao from the corner of his eyes. Since he was in the same trade as him, did he hear any bad news from him? I missed the market. Anyway, I want to get my money back, not a single cent less. Mr. Stephen, the money you invested has been converted into research in the laboratory. I'm afraid you won't be able to get the money back. However, you could try to sell the shares in your hands. Although you are not optimistic about it, I believe that our company's future is still very popular. Mr. Allor, I'm afraid you've misunderstood me. Not only do I want to sell my shares, but I also want to get back all the money I invested. Chapter 32:03. Smiling, Allor looked at Stephen. Mr. Stephen, are you joking with me? Not really. Stephen shook his head. At the same time, he took out a document. I have evidence that you and your company are committing fraud. Stephen had collected all the companies that Allor had bought materials from. They were all fake. In other words, the materials that Allor had bought with Stephen's investment were illegal. Mr. Stephen, you have to understand that many magic materials aren't normal purchases. People don't know about the magic material merchants, so they don't go through any procedures. I don't care. I only know that you're using my funds illegally, so you only have one choice. Return my money to me. What if I refuse? Allor still didn't care. I'll hire the best lawyer and apply to freeze your bank account, as well as any account that has any transaction records with your bank account. No matter how many parts you split my money into, no matter how many times you transfer it, it'll still end up in my pocket, Stephen said casually. You can deceive me in your field, but in the field that I'm good at, you won't be able to fight back, Stephen said casually. Allor's expression darkened. Mr. Stephen, your thinking is very dangerous. Stephen was actually scared too. Nevertheless, Chun Zhao gave him an encouraging look. Stephen could only muster up his courage and continue. I'll make you lose everything. I'll use all my power so that you won't even be able to walk out. Everyone will know that you're a liar, both among the ordinary people and in the spiritual world. Allor was instantly enraged by Stephen's words. He suddenly flipped the table and threw it at Stephen. Stephen covered his head in fear, but the next moment, the flying table froze in the air. Stephen put down his hands and stared at the suspended table in shock. "Mr. Allor," Chun Zhao said, smiling, "this house still needs to be used to pay off the debt, so please don't destroy any of the furniture or equipment here." Allor's expression changed. His 10 fingers suddenly turned into the sharp claws of a beast and swiped at Chun Zhao. However, his arm only swung halfway through the trajectory, and it was difficult for it to move even a single inch. "You're really ugly right now," Chun Zhao said indifferently. "Do you know what it means to admit defeat?" Allor glared at him hatefully. "I haven't lost yet, as long as you all die here." "Huh," Chun Zhao chuckled. "Please have some financial knowledge. Stephen can apply to freeze your account, but after you transfer the money 3 times, you won't be able to get it back." "But from the moment you attacked, the nature changed," Chun Zhao said. Allor didn't want to say anything now. He just wanted to kill Chun Zhao and Stephen. Actually, Chun Zhao was fishing. But who cared? Chun Zhao had never been the kind of person who followed the rules. Originally, this could only be considered an ordinary financial dispute. Even if Stephen had evidence, he couldn't force Chun Zhao to act. But from the moment Allor made his move, the situation changed completely. It turned into a psychic attacking and deliberately murdering an investor. Chun Zhao took out his phone and called West. "You can do it now." West and most of the supernatural organization members were in Las Vegas. They were stationed near most of the employees' residences and outside the fraud company. Allor tried to attack Chun Zhao and take his phone, but Chun Zhao only pointed and Allor was pressed against the wall by an invisible force. Stephen calmed down. It seemed that finding Chun Zhao was a wise choice. Allor was a druid. He tried to transform into a beast. But even so, he couldn't break free from Chun Zhao's control. At first, Stephen was worried that Allor would break free. But gradually, he realized that Allor was just putting on a one-man show. He kept tossing and turning, but in the end, he was still hanging in midair. "Go and see if you can find any evidence or other hidden bank accounts." Stephen nodded and quickly went to rummage through the cabinets. At the same time, he took Allor's phone and computer with him. Allor, his employees, and even his partners, none of them escaped. Of course, some of the employees were innocent. They just treated it as an ordinary job. These people had to be screened. Soon, all of Allor's bank accounts, sub-accounts, and even related accounts were wiped out in one go. But Stephen only got half of his money back. Most of the money had been converted into other properties. Chun Zhao didn't have a good solution either. Modern finance created more opportunities, but it also brought a lot of shadows. Allor used his network to continuously send money in and out, spreading it across the financial network. It was already good enough that he could get back half of his money. Allor also confessed his accomplices. Then, Chun Zhao got back another 100 million for Stephen. This time, Stephen was greatly hurt by the scam. He didn't go bankrupt, but he was still in a lot of debt. Most of it was in the bank. In order to raise money, he mortgaged many properties to the bank. Chun Zhao could only lend money to Stephen and have him pay back the money and get the mortgaged assets back first. Stephen had become much more haggard these days. "Stephen, did you patch up the hole on your side?" "I basically did, but my assets have shrunk greatly." Stephen rubbed his forehead. When can Mystical Island open for business? Mystical Island was still under construction, but it had been hyped up by the media. Right now, Mystical Island was very popular. "You know my Petamon, right?" "Yes, that giant killer whale." "What's wrong with it?" "It's been a bit too big recently. I plan to make it public through Mystical Island." "Huh? What do you mean?" "Simply put, I plan to make it the guardian of Mystical Island." "Will it affect Mystical Island's brand image?" Stephen didn't want to cause any more trouble. After all, he'd already been hurt by the scam. Right now, Mystical Island was doing very well. He only hoped to maintain this situation until it officially opened to the public and tourists. Its appearance will shock the world. Are you so sure? Chapter 3204. Very soon, Chun Zhao and Stephen agreed on the specific steps. After seeing Amon's photo, Stephen no longer objected. Amon was a real beast now. In terms of size, he could even be considered legendary. Amon was more than 10,000 meters long. He was like a moving island in the sea. Moreover, Amon also had the ability to fly short distances, like a flying fortress. Everything was normal at home. After Chun Zhao personally inspected the Magic High School, he agreed to let Diddala go there. Of course, it was summer break now. School hadn't started yet. Diddala was working at the brewery now. It wasn't that Chun Zhao didn't give her pocket money. In fact, Diddala's pocket money was almost the income of a normal family. But for girls her age, no amount of money was enough. They would never know how to manage their money properly. Of course, Diddala was a bit of a spender, but she wouldn't really squander it. Also, after spending all the money, she wouldn't ask Chun Zhao for more. Instead, she went to work at the brewery. Because she was Chun Zhao's child, Denver easily hired Didira. After that, she called Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao didn't ask about it. It was Jerlin's birthday at the beginning of August. To celebrate Jerlin's birthday, the whole family went to the sea. During this time, Stephen's new movie was released. It was a collaboration between him and Grove. The box office was very good. The global box office was over $2.6 billion. Both Drow and Stephen had benefited greatly from it, especially Grove. He had invested in the movie. Although it wasn't a large portion, it was enough for him to pay off his debts and still have a surplus. He also returned to the ranks of A-list celebrities. Stephen didn't need to say much. Ever since he was tricked last time, he was a bit depressed. It was mainly because he had lost too much money. He couldn't recover from it. Now, the movie was released. Although he hadn't gotten his share of the profits yet, he was already synonymous with success. Even his obvious assets were rapidly rising in value. It wasn't enough to make up for his previous losses, but at least he wasn't as nervous as before. Stephen's gloominess was swept away. Instead, he was in high spirits. Chun, come here. I have something for you. Stephen called Chun Zhao. His movie was a huge success. Of course, he would not forget Chun Zhao's help. Chun Zhao arrived at Stephen's studio. He saw a bright red and yellow off-road vehicle parked at the entrance. It was twice the height of a normal sedan. Even though Chun Zhao wasn't a car enthusiast, he was still attracted by the off-road vehicle. Stephen walked out of the studio to welcome him. Chun, what do you think about this car? Pretty good. Then it's yours. Are you sure this big guy can get on the road? Of course. All the paperwork has been done. Stephen patted the car. Chun Zhao didn't reject the Jeep. This off-road vehicle was not produced by a well-known company. It was the product of a small workshop. Don't look down on small workshops. In fact, there are more than 3,000 small workshops in the United States. It was similar to privately modified cars, but it was much more high-end than privately modified cars. They have the technology, the ability, and the ideas. Moreover, they are licensed to produce cars. In other words, their product was not a toy, but a vehicle that could really go on the highway. This kind of small workshop only served private people. They did not display the finished product. They would only design and produce according to the customer's needs, from the parts to the engine. If the customer asked for a rocket engine, they could put it on. Of course, this kind of car clearly could not go on the highway. The technology of these small workshops was not as good as those big brands. In fact, these small workshops all had their own designers and engineers. Some big brands would even seek cooperation from these small workshops and buy the license for the car models. They would even seek joint designs. This was also proof of the American car industry's development. However, the lowest order for such private customization was at least $1 million. They would not even care for a few $100,000. As long as you could think of a request, they could almost satisfy it. Therefore, there were many private customization services that could produce cars worth tens of millions. For example, the car that Stephen had given Chun Zhao was at least $5 million. Take me for a ride, Stephen said. Chun Zhao did not reject. Driving an off-road vehicle and a sports car were two completely different feelings. The vibration from the engine could not be felt in a sports car. On the road, it was like a monster. The scariest thing was the car's whistle. Because it was specially made, it could produce 120 decibels of noise. If Chun Zhao honked at a traffic light, he could shatter the windshields of the cars ahead. Chun, Are there no reliable investments in the spiritual world? Stephen asked in the car. Why do you have to invest in the spiritual world? Why don't you invest in something you're good at? You think I don't want to? But even in my area, there are not many projects that I can invest in. There are even fewer projects that can generate profits. In this era, entrepreneurs and investors only want the first wave of dividends, not long-term ones, Stephen said helplessly. Stephen said helplessly. This has caused the investment environment to deteriorate. It's too difficult to find a good project, and my money is lying in my bank account, devaluing and losing money every second. Chun Zhao pursed his lips. He had 100 times more cash than Stephen. According to Stephen, he would lose 100 times more. But these were two different ways of thinking. Chun Zhao was a typical local tycoon. All he could see was money. To Chun Zhao, the so-called depreciation was not worth mentioning. Stephen, on the other hand, was a pure investor and businessman. In his eyes, it was a crime to have more than $10 million in cash in his account. There are some reliable organizations in the spiritual world. They're also profitable, but I can't guarantee that they'll be profitable. What about the supernatural organization? Stephen asked. Chun Zhao shook his head. It's a half-government organization and not a profit-making organization. It has no investment value and doesn't accept investments. Like many famous schools, the supernatural organization only accepted donations and funding. They did not accept investments. This meant that no matter what kind of money went into the supernatural organization's account, they could spend it however they wanted without any restrictions. Even if the members split all the money, they would not break any laws. In fact, this was what the supernatural organization had always done. Every year, the surplus would be distributed to the members as benefits. Chapter 32:05. Actually, Stephen also wanted to find out more. Unfortunately, things didn't go as he wished. The supernatural organization couldn't bring him any substantial benefits. Why do you have to set your sights on the spiritual world? Do you know what the spiritual world is? Of course I do. I know it better than you, Chun Zhao said, rolling his eyes. No, you don't. You don't even know what it is, Stephen said. Stephen said, right now in the financial world and the investment world, the spiritual world is a brand new resource. It's a completely undeveloped industry with a variety of possibilities and unlimited benefits. All the rich people are raising funds and looking for possible projects to invest in the spiritual world. You know, there are many people who have been tricked like me. It's a pity that they don't have a friend like you. When Stephen said that, there was a tinge of relief in his voice. Chun Zhao rubbed his forehead. Stephen, you're a director. No, I'm not just a director, Stephen said. I'll only be on the set for less than a month every 2 years. I'm a businessman the rest of the time. If people knew that the world's top director said he was more of a businessman than a director, the world would probably explode. Since you know that there are many scammers in the spiritual world and you've experienced it yourself, haven't you learned your lesson? Chun, I know you're looking out for me, but I can't give up. This is a huge, unprecedented cake. No capitalist will let go of this chance, Stephen said. Chun, you can't miss it either. I'm rich, but I'm not a capitalist. Chun Zhao shook his head, smiling. Stephen didn't argue with Chun Zhao. Chun, help me think what projects I can invest in. Chun Zhao felt that Stephen was a bit too obsessed. But Chun Zhao couldn't persuade Stephen. He was determined to invest in projects in the spiritual world. Nevertheless, Chun Zhao still helped Stephen think. How is it? Have you thought of one? Chun Zhao rubbed his chin and didn't speak for a long time. After a while, he looked at Stephen. Stephen also remained silent, waiting for Chun Zhao's reply. After a few minutes, Chun Zhao said, What do you think about a spiritual world competition, like the NBC Sports Network or the MLB Network? Stephen was surprised. Are there no competitions in the spiritual world? Yes, but there are almost no professional competitions. For example, a month ago, there was the World Supernatural Competition in the Bhikkhu Islands. That was already the highest level of competition in the supernatural world. There is no prize money in that kind of competition, only honor. Moreover, the competition is very irregular. If you set up a professional alliance, you may have unexpected gains. Can I? I can give you the contact information of some people. If you have their support, then half the battle is won. Stephen looked at him. Who are they? You can think of it as the leader of the world's most powerful religions. Like the Pope? He's one of them. I'm starting to get interested now. Can you tell me more about it? You don't need to do the best. No, if I'm going to do it, I'll do it at the highest level, Stephen said. You can't. Besides the Pope, there's no one I can't invite. He's one of them, and he's the weakest among the highest. Okay, apart from these people, you just need to do the most professional one. But before that, you better find a professional to plan it. Aren't you one? I can pay you. That car's pretty good, right? I'm in the industry, but not a professional. I can only provide a general direction. If you really want to do this, you need a professional team. Do you understand? To avoid being scammed again, I need you to recommend people. Okay, I'll recommend a few people. At the end of August, Chun Zhao brought Didi to San Francisco Magic High. When Chun Zhao and Didi arrived at the school gate, he realized that there were many more facilities. Chun Zhao had come to inspect it personally before. This was his second time here. There were many people here today. 99% of them were from the spiritual world. Most of them were parents with their children. Even the people from the TV station came over to broadcast it. The Magic High School had only officially opened today, but in fact, starting from May, the Magic High School had already started teaching. There were various registration points in the school. Chun Zhao brought Didi to one of them. After the registration was the interview, not only for the students, but also for the parents. Chun Zhao had to participate too. Chun Zhao and Didi were led into a room. There were 3 interviewers. One was an old man, and the other 2 were a young man and a young woman. However, the 2 young people were quite strong. The old man was even more unfathomable. Hello, please sit, the young female interviewer said. Can you introduce yourselves? Didi was rather confident. He said, Hello, I'm Didi Chun. This is my adoptive father. I'm 13 this year. Oh, can you tell us about the magic system you've mastered? I currently know a small amount of curse magic, as well as some simple strengthening magic. My main cultivation is nature's spirit, Didyrus said. The 3 interviewers nodded slightly. Having so many magic systems meant either one's family background or the environment they grew up in. You know quite a lot. Did your adoptive father teach you this? My uncle taught me some too. The 3 interviewers looked at Chun Zhao. Mr. Chun, you're also from the spiritual world, right? Yes, I am. Chun Zhao nodded. The aura of the 3 main examiners was very strong. If it was an ordinary spiritualist, they would probably be suppressed by the aura of the 3 main examiners. Actually, this was also part of the interview. The 3 were somewhat surprised. Chun Zhao was completely unaffected by their auras. Mr. Chun, what system do you belong to? Strengthening, Chun Zhao answered. What's your main job? I work in a supernatural organization and also run my own company. Then, have you fought with monsters, spirits, magical beasts, and other spiritualists before? Didi secretly rolled his eyes and looked at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao also looked at Didi helplessly. I don't have a lot of battle experience, Chun Zhao answered. I've only sparred with Didi and my kids. I've also helped people get rid of evil spirits before. Chapter 32:06. This was in line with most parents' personalities. When Didi heard Chun Zhao's self-introduction, she almost couldn't control her expression. She couldn't help it. What Chun Zhao said and the real Chun Zhao were 2 extremes. Chun Zhao looked at the 3 people before him seriously. The old interviewer in the middle only gave Chun Zhao a deep look. He didn't say much. Occasionally, he would raise his head to look at Chun Zhao and Didi. Most of the time, he was flipping through their information. Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Chun and Ms. Didi. Next is the subject selection. What do you want? I want to deepen my practice in curse, Didi said. Also, I want to choose elemental. Didi, aren't you going to test your magic affinity before making a decision? How do I test it? Our school has a device that can monitor the user's magic affinity. This is to help students make better choices. If possible, I like to test it too, Didi said. Milu, take Didi to do the test. You 2 this way, please. The female examiner brought Didi and Chun Zhao to another room. The device in this room didn't look like a magic device. It was more like a technological device. Take off your magic equipment and metal items first, Mila said, then lie down on the platform. The device looked like an X-ray scanner. After Didi lay down, the platform brought her past the circular hole. In 10 seconds, the test was completed. In Chen Zhao's eyes, this device didn't have many secrets. Of course, Chen Zhao knew the theory behind it, but it didn't mean he could make it. Not long after, all the admission procedures were completed. Chen Zhao and Didi strolled around the school. Didi, this is a house I have in San Francisco. You can choose to live in the school or in that house, but you have to go home at the end of the 4th week every month. You know what I mean, if you don't want the school to be destroyed by a sudden storm. Okay, I understand, Uncle. The atmosphere here was very good. People using magic could be seen everywhere in the school. Just then, a few students came over. One of the girls said to Didi, "Hey, do you want to go to our club? It's a magical beast hobby club." Chen Zhao smiled and waved his hand, telling Didi to do as he pleased. Didira followed the girls away. Everyone here was the same as her, and their ages were similar to hers. That was why she was able to find more companions here, more comrades. Didi La, the only condition for joining our Magical Beast Enthusiast Association is to raise a magical beast. Any breed and level is fine. I don't have a magical beast. It doesn't matter. We could buy one together. San Francisco has a very famous magic street. There are almost all kinds of magic shops there. Many of our club's newcomers don't have magic beasts. Let's go together tomorrow. I'll ask my uncle. Maybe he can help me get a magical beast. Although the house was also filled with the atmosphere of magic. However, her family and Chen Zhao's age gap was obvious. His mind was filled with thoughts of what disasters would happen and when he would have to save the world. Her brothers and sisters were not on the same channel as her. She could only find a sense of identity with these peers in front of her. It was the same feeling in school in Mountain Town, although there were people of the same age. There were also people of the same age as her, but there weren't many people she could really talk to. Didira quickly made new friends here. After receiving Didira's request, Chen Zhao made a decision after some consideration. Didira definitely didn't want an advanced magical beast. In school, most people of the same age didn't have any advanced magical beasts either. Moreover, they were easy to raise and docile. So, Chen Zhao helped Didira find a mid-level magical beast. It wasn't strong, but it was a girl type. The so-called girlish version was the kind that looked cute and had the cuteness attribute. It was called a coiled bird, a fat bird-type magical beast. Coiled birds didn't need any magic contract to bind them. They were like domestic dogs. As long as they recognized their owner, they would be very clingy. They were extremely docile and would almost never attack people first. If Chen Zhao wanted to increase his power, coiled birds definitely weren't a good choice. They were also very rare because of their personality. Chen Zhao spent money to buy a place where coiled birds appeared and then went to catch them himself. After staying in San Francisco for 2 days, Chen Zhao returned to Los Angeles. Didira chose to live in school. For her, if she could live outside, she wouldn't have to choose a magic university. She wanted the atmosphere of a magic university. Mr. Chun, I'm Ofer Lorby. Your yacht is basically finished. When do you have time to come to the Seagate headquarters to look at it? Chen Zhao interrupted. Source changing app. Not bad. It's worth installing. It even supports Android and Apple phones. Chen Zhao thought for a moment. When can it be delivered? We're still simplifying the details. It's estimated to be completed in a month and delivered to Los Angeles in 3 months. Of course, Mr. Chun, you can also choose to drive the first round of the yacht. Ofer Lorby knew that many buyers placed great importance on the first round. For these buyers, it was a very ceremonial thing. Therefore, the first round had to be approved by the buyer. Chen Zhao thought for a moment. I'll arrange the time. Okay, Ofer Lorby said. I'll look forward to your arrival. Oh, right, the yacht will be named Didira. Please ask your company's designer to design a beautiful logo. Of course, no problem. Also, if I'm satisfied with the yacht, I'll consider giving you a few orders of the same level. Ofer Lorby almost chuckled. She almost thought she was hearing things. Mr. Chun, Are you telling the truth? Yes. I plan to customize a yacht for each of my children and my wife. I'll also name it after them. Chun Zhao had promised Didi that he would give the ship to Didi. It was also going to be given to Didira in the future. Of course, he had to ensure that the yacht wouldn't be obsolete in the next 10 or even 20 years. Ofer Lorby had detailed information on Chun Zhao's family members. She knew that Chun Zhao had many children. While she was excited, she was also envious. She even wanted to be Chun Zhao's daughter. Mr. Chun, don't worry. I'll get the best designers and engineers in the world to be in charge of your project. That better be the case. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up now. Okay, have a good day. Goodbye. Goodbye. Chapter 32:07. Chun Zhao had already rejected invitations a few times. The main reason was that he didn't have the time. The tour was just for the novelty. Last time, Northern Gravity had invited Chun Zhao to visit their airplane production line. To be honest, he wasn't really interested in this kind of factory. Chun Zhao didn't really feel anything about this tour. Initially, it was just a vacation. It was even worse than traveling. So, when Chun Zhao said he would consider it, he actually rejected her. If he had the time, wouldn't it be better to lie at home? Didira's life and studies at school were quite smooth. Chun Zhao had also paid a secret visit to make sure that Didi wasn't lying. In the middle of September, Stephen gave Chun Zhao a call. Their plan to reveal Amon had begun. First, Stephen had to film a documentary to find the giant Pacific beast. The first part of the project was to film and search for the unknown Pacific giant beast. According to the script, they would first find a giant beast wreaking havoc in the Pacific Ocean. This giant beast represented the cruel and bloodthirsty side of the beast. They specifically attacked the blue whale, which symbolized gentleness and peace. In the second episode, the beast would suddenly meet with misfortune. It was attacked and killed by an even bigger and more terrifying being. In the second episode, there will be some blurry images. It was also at this moment that Amon was lured out. Amon would appear as the guardian of the ecosystem. Of course, this was a conclusion that came from the commentator's mouth and combined with some specious historical information. From the third episode onwards, the main focus of the plot would be to find the guardian of the Pacific. At the end of the third episode, Amon would appear in front of the camera in all aspects for the first time. Then the fourth episode was to track down Amon. Furthermore, there had been direct contact between humans and Amon. This scene would be played by Stephen himself. The whole documentary will be presented as a story. The fifth and sixth episodes were about Amon's daily life and his duties. This responsibility was, of course, fabricated. Amon's nemesis, the king of the sea beasts, the creator of chaos, the sea monster Hydra, also known as Little Nine. There was no other way. To erect a positive image of Amon, there must be a negative image that would cause people to fear. Little Nine was unwilling to pass on this responsibility. After all, with Little Nine's attitude, no one would believe that it was kind. At the end of the seventh episode, Little Nine would also appear in front of the camera with his true form. It will be the supervillain of the documentary. He even hunted down and attacked the film crew. The eighth episode would be about the film crew's escape. At the end of the eighth episode, Amon appeared and rescued the film crew. This would be the highlight of the documentary. The two old enemies finally met. There was no winner or loser in the battle between the two sides. In the end, the film crew safely evacuated. At the beginning of the ninth episode, due to the serious damage to the ship, the film crew decided to go to the mysterious island for supplies and return to the mainland. However, when he was chatting with the builders of the island, he heard that a stone tablet was found on the island. The stone tablet recorded the opposing relationship between Amon and Little Nine. When the ninth episode was about to end, a sudden storm struck the mystical island. The king of magical beasts, the nine-headed snake Hydra, also came along with the storm. It led the Storm Legion, which was a large number of magical beasts, to attack the mystical island. The Storm Legion was a name Stephen came up with. In the 10th episode, at the most dangerous moment, Amon would appear. Moreover, it would fly over and gather the giant creatures on the magical island to fight against the evil Storm Legion. In the end, justice triumphed over evil, and the Storm Army was defeated. On the other hand, Amon and the Hydra would have a big battle. In the battle, both sides were heavily injured. The Hydra was defeated, and Amon won a Pyrrhic victory. Amon would no longer hide. He would hide in the sea near the mystical island to recover and protect the peace of the island. Amon was the absolute main character. Chun Zhao and Stephen thought that not only did they want Amon to appear, but they also wanted him to be one of the attractions of the mystical island. In the future, tourists who went to the mystical island would have a chance to see Amon. Stephen looked at everyone at the desk. You're all my old employees and friends. I won't say anything unnecessary. Now, you're going to participate in an unprecedented project. In front of you is a confidentiality agreement. If you sign it, you'll receive a very generous reward. It's about the same as 40 years of hard work. If you're not willing to sign it, you can leave the office. Of course, no one left. Just from the reward that Stephen mentioned, they had no reason to leave. Moreover, many people were thinking that an unprecedented project definitely meant an unprecedented opportunity. Of course, they wouldn't miss such a great opportunity. Stephen was practically a synonym for success. In the past 2 years, they'd fully experienced the benefits of following Stephen. They'd all become famous in the industry. No one was willing to miss such an opportunity. Everyone signed their names without hesitation. There are magical restrictions in this contract, Stephen said. It's also commonly known as a magic contract. Everyone was shocked. Judging from Stephen's expression, he didn't seem to be joking. Boss, whether it's a magic contract or not, it doesn't matter to us. Stephen looked at everyone and nodded. Okay, let's go out to sea and meet the main character of our project. Go out to sea. Meet the main character. Which superstar was overseas now? Also, with Stephen's status, shouldn't the main character be meeting him? Why did he bring the entire team to meet the main character? Wasn't the main character too ostentatious? Of course, they wouldn't raise their objections in front of Stephen. When they reached the port, Chun Zhao had already been waiting for a long time. Many people in Stephen's team knew Chun Zhao. They knew that Chun Zhao and Stephen were close. When Stephen was filming, Chun Zhao would often appear on the set. Chun, everyone's here. Let's go out to sea. The team of more than 10 people boarded Chun Zhao's private yacht. Despite the large number of people, Chun Zhao's private yacht was still very spacious. It was just that there weren't enough bedrooms. 2 people had to squeeze into 1 bedroom. Of course, with how luxurious the yacht was, this wasn't a problem at all. On the yacht, Chun Zhao also provided enough food and wine. As long as they didn't destroy the yacht, they could do whatever they wanted here. Mr. Chun, do you know the specifics of our project? It was Stephen's current assistant director, Irvin Lander, who asked the question. You'll know soon, but don't wet your pants. Chapter 3208. The storm today was especially strong. The waves came one after another. The film crew was a little worried. It was such a big storm. What if the boat capsized? However, Chun Zhao and Stephen didn't change their minds at all. Even the flight path was on autopilot. Just then, they vaguely saw an island in the storm. Their target seemed to be the island. However, when the film crew got closer, they realized that it wasn't an island. It was a colossus, an unimaginably colossal beast. Everyone couldn't close their mouths in shock. Was that really a living thing? The boat arrived before it. Everyone realized that the boat wasn't even as big as its eye. Everyone held their breath. It was as if they were afraid that their breathing would disturb the beast. Stephen and Chun Zhao walked onto the deck. Stephen had seen Amon before. He was even quite familiar with Amon. But Amon hadn't been this big back then. Even now, Stephen still couldn't believe it. The big guy before them was Amon. They were 2 different creatures. Is it really Amon? Absolutely. Chun Zhao was also shocked by Amon's size. It seemed like Amon had grown a lot since the last time. Boss, Mr. Chun, our project is related to this monster? Let's go to the cabin, Stephen said. Everyone, Stephen said. Everyone went to the meeting room and stared at Chun Zhao and Stephen. Stephen took out the script he'd written. That's our project this time, Wang Yao said. One person finished reading the script and passed it around in silence. Then the second person finished and fell silent again. The third, the fourth, the fifth, everyone was dumbfounded. Their project was really related to this monster. Also, were you sure this was a documentary? Not a movie? Boss, are you sure everyone will cooperate with us? I'm very sure, Chun Zhao said. Why? Simply put, it's Chen's pet, Steven said. Everyone felt terrible. That terrifying, unheard-of beast was Chun Zhao's pet. They felt like their world was collapsing. Did all rich people have such strange hobbies? What about Hydra? It's also my pet, so you don't have to worry about whether they'll cooperate during filming. In fact, they can understand most of your requests. Everyone was still in disbelief. All right, you guys can meet the king of magical beasts now. Not far away, a huge object rose from the sea. It wasn't as big as Amon, but it was still huge. The yacht, which was dozens of meters long, seemed insignificant in front of that thing. It was a pillar with a diameter of 700 to 800 meters. However, when everyone saw the pillar clearly, they realized that it was not a pillar at all, but the neck of a giant python. Just the area above the sea alone was more than 10 kilometers long, snaking towards the yacht. Then the second head popped out of the water, the third, the fourth, all the way to the ninth head. Stephen gasped in amazement, while the others were shocked. The attitude that little nine displayed did not lose to Amon at all. Each of the 9 snake heads had a different color. Each snake head had a neck length of more than 10 kilometers. His lower body was even longer. While everyone was amazed, they also accepted the title of the king of magical beasts. The Hydra was a famous sea monster in ancient Greek mythology. After the initial shock and panic, the film crew calmed down and entered the excitement stage. After their emotions gradually stabilized, they entered the stage of excitement. This was an unprecedented project. This is an unprecedented project. An unprecedented project. If this documentary could be broadcast successfully. No, even if it was filmed successfully, it would be a great documentary. Right now, they were very glad that they had made the choice. Even if the documentary was just a scam, it could not change the greatness of the documentary. Of course, the 2 main leads were very cooperative, but filming wasn't that easy, even though they were the most professional people in the industry. To achieve a realistic effect, they also had to consider the angle of the shoot. For example, the sea monster that appeared first. As the main character of the first 2 episodes, it had many scenes too. But where did it come from? Of course, Chun Zhao had to find it. First, it had to have a ferocious appearance. It would make people feel that it deserved to die at first glance. If he found something that looked honest, like a docile sea monster like a blue whale, instead, people would feel pity for it. Another example was that the monster had to do evil. At the very least, it had to go against human values. After 2 days, Chun Zhao finally found a giant sea monster. Its basic conditions met the film crew's requirements. Chun Zhao even used dark lava to demonize the sea monster. This made it look even more evil. Then, he had to make it do evil. Because it was a documentary, they couldn't film it in front of it. But they had to make the scene as clear as possible. So, they still needed to be skillful when filming the plot. Documentaries and movies were 2 different concepts. They also needed professional explanations to promote the plot that they had arranged. In a few days, the film crew filmed a lot of material. These would be edited in the post-production stage. This sea monster would also be classified as a member of the Storm Army. It was also a general under the command of the king of magical beasts, Hydra. After filming enough material, Amon appeared and killed the general of the Storm Army. Amon appeared and attacked the general of the Storm Army with the power of a monarch. Then, it was the film crew and Amon's tracking process. The early filming was quite smooth. During the filming, Steven even talked to Amon about the scenes. Chun Zhao would return to the yacht after some time to help the film crew solve some technical problems. Other than that, he would spend most of his time searching for sea monsters. It was used to recruit soldiers for the Storm Army in the final battle. Chun Zhao even used the god of otherworldlings on Demon Island. They looked like villains. So, it was enough for them to be extras. Most of them were the sea monsters that Chen Zhao had found. But in order to make them look evil, Chen Zhao still cast dark lava on all the sea magical beasts. This way, they could cooperate better with the filming. For this documentary, Chen Zhao and Steven had spent a lot of money. Don't think that you can save money just because the two main characters work together. In fact, the amount of money invested in this project was definitely an astronomical figure. Just the cost of the film crew and the confidentiality agreement was more than $30 million. The bookstore that the book friends had used before was already dead. Now, they were all using the Source Exchange app. Chapter 3209. At the beginning of filming, everyone was still a bit flustered. But gradually, as the filming progressed, everyone got used to it. Aman, remember, this scene needs emotion. The assistant director was talking to Aman about the scene with the script. At first, when Steven was talking to Aman about the scene, Irvin thought that Steven was crazy. At first, when he saw Steven talking to Aman about the script, Erwin Lander thought Steven was out of his mind. Why would he talk to a monster? But now, he was doing the same thing. Remember, this emotion is conveyed through the eyes, Irvin said. Erwin Lander said, after our ship is attacked, use your flank fin to support our ship, and then your eyes have to burst out with that kind of feeling for us. Let's try to get through this scene once, okay? When everything was ready, Irvin returned to the ship. Then, the 8th episode started. This scene happened after they were attacked by the king of magical beasts, Hydra. The film crew's ship was badly damaged. Of course, the ship that entered the camera was not Chen Zhao's. Instead, it was an ocean-going research ship. Steven left most of the filming to Erwin Lander. It was to give him more practical experience. In reality, it was to slack off. Chen Zhao was also enjoying himself on the ship. In fact, after the filming ended every day, the film crew would return to the ship and party. When they were working, they were the most dedicated and professional people. And after filming, they would indulge in their own unbridled revelry. Chen, how's the preparation for the supporting roles for the final battle? It's ready, Chen Zhao said. I think we can start preparing for the second season now. We haven't even finished filming the first season, and you're already preparing for the second? Don't you want to see the market's reaction? This is a history-making documentary. With my name on it, it's almost destined to succeed, Steven said confidently. Also, I think Little Nine needs a chance to clear his name. We can't let him on clear his name while Little Nine is still the villain, right? You have an idea for the second season? I don't have a clear sneak attack yet, Steven said. It's just a preliminary idea. So, have you found a buyer for the documentary? Not yet, but trust me, this documentary will be sold at a sky-high price. In total, we've invested almost $100 million. I just hope to get back our investment. Breaking even isn't my plan. How much do you think we can earn? If it's just the premiere, it can sell for at least $200 million. Steven said, if we directly buy out the broadcasting rights of the first season, it would cost at least $500 million, plus a share of the advertising revenue. This is a documentary. Are you sure it can be sold at such a high price? You still don't understand human psychology well enough. After nearly a month at sea, the filming was basically over. What followed was the post-production editing. Chen Zhao and Steven returned to Los Angeles first. Half of the film crew stayed at sea to reshoot some scenes. Steven, do you want to go to Italy with me? Why are you going to Italy? Do you want to play? No, it's the people from Seagate Yacht Company. They said that my yacht is about to be completed and they want to invite me to their company for a visit. I'm not interested. I'm going with you. You should ask Fei Lai to go with you. That's what she said. She thinks this kind of tour is too boring. This was what Fei Lai had complained about after visiting the Northern Gravity Field last time. This time, Chen Zhao had only mentioned it casually, but Fei Lai had rejected him directly. Neither Chen Zhao nor Fei Lai were people who understood the charm of high technology. Of course, enjoying the convenience brought by technology was one thing. If Chen Zhao or Fei Lai actually visited those high-tech factories, they wouldn't be able to understand the power of it all. Steven knew a little, but he wasn't interested either. Plus, he was about to start working on a new project. The editing for the documentary was very tight. Stephen hoped to air the documentary before the first phase of the project was completed. It would also bring a lot of tourists to the island. Therefore, Stephen didn't want to go at all. Chen Zhao felt helpless. It seemed that no one around him wanted to go. Chen Zhao didn't have much to do during the few days he rested at home. Zhang Ting, who was in charge of the animation company in China, called. "Boss, I'll give you a report on our company's financial situation for the third quarter." "Okay, go ahead." Chen Zhao lay in the boat, floating on Mirror Lake. In the third quarter, our company's expenditure was 12 million renminbi, and our revenue was 6 million renminbi. The expenditure was mainly on employee salaries, equipment purchases, office space, utilities, and management expenses. There was also advertising investment, which was a large expenditure. Zhang Ting paused for a moment and said, "In terms of revenue, it's the revenue from our 2 full-length animation works that are currently online. One of them has already gained some popularity in China." When Zhang Ting reported the company's recent situation, she was still a bit uneasy. After all, spending 12 million in a quarter in revenue of $6 million meant a loss of $6 million. Any investor would be careful with their investments. "Oh, got it." Chen Zhao didn't say anything. Losing $6 million in a quarter was less than $1 million. It wasn't a problem for Chen Zhao. Plus, Chen Zhao hadn't wanted to make money in the first place. He'd bought this studio to give him advice. He had to admit that they were quite useful in this aspect. The saying, "one man counts, 2 men count as long," was very obvious here. For example, Chen Zhao's current signature move, Neutron Star, Dark Red Neutron Star, and Golden Neutron Star in its original form, were all suggested by Zhang Ting and the others. Therefore, Chen Zhao didn't care about this small loss at all. He'd just treat it as a contribution to China's animation industry. As for Zhang Ting's plan of not making a loss for 5 years, Chen Zhao hoped that she could succeed. It was not because of his investment, but because of her dream. Hearing that Chen Zhao wasn't going to criticize her, Zhang Ting heaved a sigh of relief. However, she was even more troubled. She stuttered for a while. "Boss, I still have something. Tell me, what is it?" "Remember that at the beginning of the year, I mentioned that I wanted to make an animated movie? I remember that I agreed. Then, I want to start implementing this plan. What do you think?" "Oh, how much is the budget?" $100 million. Is that okay?" "I'll give you 200 million. I want to see our own work released as soon as possible," Chen Zhao said. "I'll contact the finance department later. Give me the budget and proposal." Chapter 32:10. After Zhang Ting hung up, she let out a long sigh. Chen Zhao usually didn't care about the company's business. But no company's management would care about the company's losses. He could still face the investors calmly. Zhang Ting wasn't the kind of entrepreneur who did whatever she wanted. The kind of people who would do anything to attract investment. In front of investors, he could boast to them. She could describe the future like a dream. It was as if not investing in him was like losing a $5 million lottery ticket. Zhang Ting before Chen Zhao bought the studio. She was almost at the point of bankruptcy. If not for the studio's artists and designers, she would still be able to make a living. Zhang Ting could have given up then. Luckily, she met Chen Zhao, a nouveau riche, an investor who didn't know how to save money. Zhang Ting came from a well-off family. She'd never been mistreated in terms of money since she was young. Therefore, he had high standards and was a little overbearing. This was also why she couldn't lower herself to beg investors. She used to look down on nouveau riche. In her eyes, nouveau riche were a bunch of uncultured bumpkins. But Chen Zhao was the extreme of the nouveau riche. He was extremely rich, extremely cultured, and extremely heroic. She'd been in contact with him for almost a year. She already knew that Chen Zhao wasn't a nouveau riche who won the lottery. Chen Zhao also had entrepreneurial experience. She even knew a little about why Chen Zhao went abroad. Back then, she thought that Chen Zhao wanted to launder money. Now, she didn't have that thought. Chen Zhao's standards were definitely not lower than hers. He wouldn't be fooled by Zhang Ting's dreams and career. But he was such a contradictory person. He was actually willing to support her seemingly laughable dream with such a large amount of money. Just then, Yi Ziqing pushed open Zhang Ting's office door. Yi Ziqing accepted Chun Zhao's invitation. She was currently the CEO of the animation company. "Darling, you don't look good. Did our big boss embarrass you?" Zhang Ting shook her head with a bitter smile. "He didn't say anything." "Then, he didn't agree to your big movie plan?" "No, he agreed too. He even approved 200 million yuan for my project." "Then shouldn't you be even happier? Why are you frowning? You should know that the future of the animation industry is still uncertain. How many big animation movies have been released in the country in the past decade? But how many of them have really made a splash? Other than a certain Xiong and a certain Yang, which tend to be aimed at young audiences, only Monkey Sun and Neza, which have a production cycle of several years, have made money. Now that the boss has approved such a large sum of money to invest in a big movie, I'm really not confident that I can make money. I'm not even confident that I can recover my capital." Even if you know this, how could our boss not know? He's not a real nouveau riche. Before he invested, he probably did market research and was mentally prepared to lose money. Market research? Zhang Ting was doubtful. Chun Zhao didn't even ask for the script. He immediately agreed to her request. Zhang Ting smiled bitterly. She did not know how to describe her boss. An investor like Chun Zhao was the type that entrepreneurs love to meet. There was no other. He would not interfere with the development of the company. Apart from the accountant who was appointed by Chun Zhao, there were no other executives. However, Zhang Ting's personality had also decided that she was not here to make a profit. She wanted to make a career and earn profits for Chun Zhao. This was also her way of returning the favor. The next day, the finance department found Zhang Ting, and after some negotiations, the company's account gained another 200 million yuan. It was almost a blink of an eye. There was no time difference at all. Zhang Ting did not know what to say. She was not confident, but she was still in a complicated state of pain and happiness. The happiest thing for entrepreneurs was having more money in the company's account. When the employees heard about the big movie plan, they were all very excited, especially the employees who were involved in the big movie plan. They were all full of energy. The company's high salary was one thing. More importantly, it was the dream of these young people. The highest goal of an animation company was to produce a big movie. As for how many billions they had to break through, it was still too far away for them. They could not see things that far away. The production of a big movie was very complicated. It was even more complicated than a live-action movie. Other than the script, it was the design and modeling of the characters, costumes, props, scenes, and actions. If it was a 3D movie, motion capture was also needed. This process required a very complicated and tedious accumulation of work. A big animation movie might require thousands or tens of thousands of drawings. This was not a plot sketch, but a setting sketch. And if it was a real main plot sketch, it would be an astronomical figure. Of course, the current animation movies did not use manual sketches, but computer sketches. The scenes and characters were actually separated. For example, a running character would actually use an original drawing for the scene. Only the character's actions were constantly refreshing. Depending on the amount of investment, the finesse of a shot would also vary. An investment of 100 million yuan and an investment of 200 million yuan could produce a completely different picture. Under Zhang Ting's control, the project was carried out in an orderly manner. "Dear, have you seen the documentary that Stephen filmed recently?" Yi Ziqing walked into Zhang Ting's office. "Stephen? He filmed a documentary?" "Yes." "I'm not interested in documentaries. And do I look like someone who has time to watch them?" Zhang Ting glanced at Yi Ziqing. "You probably won't recommend me to watch documentaries. I just realized that the producer of this documentary is our boss." "That's not strange. Our boss is very familiar with Stephen. I remember that when we went to Los Angeles last time, he even brought us to visit Stephen's studio." Zhang Ting paused and said, "Is there anything special about the documentary?" "There's nothing strange about it. It's just a record for documentaries, and it even set a record for CCB's viewership. Our country's Penguin Video even imported it. I heard that they bought the broadcasting rights at an unprecedented price. It's just a documentary. How expensive can it be?" "It's a documentary, but the scenes are quite shocking. It's a top Hollywood team with a top research ship, and the documentary is looking for the Pacific giant beast. The film crew really found it. The scenes are quite thrilling. Oh, is it really that good? Then I'll find some time to watch it. It can be considered as a contribution to our boss. Chapter 3211. Soon, the documentary became a hit all over the world. More than 30 countries introduced the documentary to more than 1 billion people. In the first episode, it was only a hit. But when the giant Pacific Ocean beast appeared at the end of the second episode, when the ferocious deep-sea magical beast was annihilated at lightning speed, the documentary then reached its climax. The more it went on, the more exciting the documentary became. Zhang Ting and Yi Ziqing had become the most loyal viewers of the documentary. Both domestically and overseas, the documentary was very popular. No one could imagine that such a terrifying beast was hiding in the depths of the Pacific Ocean. But it was shown in the story. The beast was not evil, and it had a natural affinity for humans. As the story progressed, the audience realized that the beast was the guardian of the Pacific Ocean. It maintained the ecological balance of the Pacific Ocean. Everyone in the audience had a feeling of sudden realization. Because of the foreshadowing in the early part of the story and the limited contact between the film crew and the beast, the two seemed to maintain a tacit and respectful relationship. It gave the audience the feeling that the beast was very principled. It wandered around the oceans, but it never actively harmed other sea creatures. Even when the whales swam past it, it never actively harmed the whales. And after the 8th episode, the story finally led to the king of the beasts, the Hydra. That was how the most exciting plot of the documentary unfolded. The sea beasts that the Guardian had attacked were all under the command of the king of the beasts. The king of the beasts and the Guardian were natural opposites. The king of the beasts and its storm army also revealed their true colors. However, after the magical Beast King appeared, it only had a short confrontation with the Guardian that ended in a draw. The film crew had to turn back because of the severe damage to their ship. Because of the power problem, they asked for help from the nearby sea. Luckily, their ship was near the mystical island, and the management of the island sent a ship to pick them up. They found an ancient stone tablet on the island, which vaguely recorded the relationship between the Guardian and the King of the Beasts. At the same time, the storm was also approaching the mystical island. The final battle of the 10th episode, which was also the most shocking plot of the documentary, unfolded in the storm. The Guardian roamed the sky in the storm and descended on the mystical island with the power of King. And the creatures on the mystical island also responded to the Guardian. They formed the Guardian army and fought against the Storm army. After the earth-shattering battle, the Storm army and the King of the Beasts retreated. The Protector was also heavily injured. The light of dawn shone on the sea. Background music rang out. The huge figure of the Guardian lurked in the sea near the mystical island. It did not go far from Mysterious Island. Perhaps it was because it had been severely injured in the battle, so it needed to recuperate here. Or perhaps the King of Magical Beasts was still around, so the Protectors had to continue protecting the island. This war might go on forever, just like in the past countless years. Just like the Battle of the Storm last night. It was unknown how many times he had experienced it. However, as long as the Guardians existed, the King of Magical Beasts would never be able to wreak havoc in these waters. It was the King of the Sea, the Guardian of the ecological balance. In the voiceover, the subtitles appeared. The camera slowly rose from the mysterious island. A shadow that was almost the same size as the mysterious island was in the sea near the mysterious island. At the same time, the embryonic form of the mysterious island could be seen. The first phase of the project had been completed. Therefore, the mysterious island was no longer a chaotic construction site. Large amounts of vegetation covered the mystical island. There were also some remains of magical beasts. However, there were still many modern buildings on the mystical island. Zhang Ting and Yi Ziqing were both shocked. "I'm going to watch it on Penguin again," Zhang Ting said. The two girls felt like they had not had enough. They felt that the story was not over. However, the documentary had already ended. The 10 episodes had all been played. Just then, Chun Zhao's call came in. "Boss, it's so late." "What's up?" "Get ready," Chun Zhao said. I'm going to organize a trip for the entire company after New Year's. It won't go through the company's accounts. I'll treat you personally. Boss, the movie project has just started. I'm afraid work and rest can create better work. Don't force the employees too much. It's settled. Chen Zhao did not plan on discussing it with Zhang Ting. Zhang Ting's expression said, I knew it. Chen Zhao did not interfere with the development of the company. However, he seemed to like giving out benefits. This was also known as squandering. Boss, where do you think we should go? A ship under the Caribbean Empire Cruise Line will dock in Magic City. I've bought tickets for the entire company. You just have to board the ship and you'll know where its final destination is. Zhang Ting knew that Chen Zhao was generous, but she did not expect him to be this generous. Usually, a mid to short trip would be one stop along the coast. Even if they floated on the sea for a day or two, the ticket would cost a few $1,000s. If it was an ocean trip, it would cost at least tens of thousands of dollars. Some could even go up to hundreds of thousands. If it was a high-class cabin, it would be even more expensive. Some cabins could even cost hundreds of thousands. With Chen Zhao's personality, he probably would not buy mid to low-class cabins for them. There were around 60 people in the company, including the cleaning lady. They probably all had cabins that started at least 100,000. After all, the company was Chen Zhao's, so Zhang Ting's objection was useless. Fortunately, Chen Zhao was only unyielding when giving out benefits. Since they could not refuse, they could only finish their work in advance. Only then could they go out and play in peace. What's our boss doing now? He said that we should organize a company-wide trip after New Year's. Didn't you say that time is tight for the movie project? I did, but it's useless. The boss's decision cannot be changed. I really don't know what our boss is thinking. He's invested so much money, but he's still so willful. You'll get used to it. Zhang Ting was actually not very against it. After all, Chen Zhao had done it once last year. Moreover, this kind of rich trip could indeed make the employees more cohesive. The company had recruited many new employees this year. Chen Zhao might as well use this opportunity to make them focus. I'm not going. This kind of trip is too tiring. I'd rather go out and walk around. Then don't regret it, Zhang Ting said. Do you think I've never seen the world? To be honest, compared to our rich boss, you really haven't seen the world. Is it that exaggerated? Last year, our company only had 20 people on the trip to Los Angeles, and our boss spent at least $20 million. Do you know what that means? All of our assets combined don't even add up to $20 million, but he spent it on our expenses. Chapter 32:12. Yi Ziqing thought that she was quite knowledgeable. In the few years she'd studied abroad, she'd already earned $1 million. So, she almost never had to worry about money. She wasn't financially free yet. As long as she didn't buy anything too big, there was nothing she couldn't afford. The bosses of the companies she'd worked for after returning to China were all famous tycoons. They were all famous rich people, but even they didn't spend as much as Chen Zhao did. Don't think that those billion-dollar tycoons could just casually throw tens of millions of yuan into the water. But Chen Zhao could really throw money around. She'd never seen someone squander like him. Yi Ziqing wasn't scared by the tens of millions. What she found unbelievable was that Chen Zhao didn't care about cash flow at all. Not to mention others, even the top few companies in the world. Let them dangle $10 million in one day. They probably couldn't even spend half of it in a day. Yi Ziqing listened to Zhang Ting talk about their trip to Los Angeles last year. She was already dumbfounded. She'd enjoyed a top hotel before. She could barely go to a top restaurant once a year. But during the company trip, they'd stayed in a top hotel and had a top restaurant for every meal. Every time they went shopping, Chen Zhao would be the one paying the bills. He spent money without blinking. She really felt like it was a dream. Of course, Zhang Ting didn't know how much Chen Zhao had spent. He didn't tell his employees either. If they knew that their boss had spent so much money to provide that level of enjoyment, the employees probably wouldn't be grateful. They would only wonder why the boss didn't give them the money. It was realistic and human. Dadaira, how's school? Great. The yacht I ordered has arrived. It's named after you. It's the first trip this weekend. Are you coming? Okay. Can I bring a friend? Of course, Chen Zhao agreed. But the first trip is from Los Angeles to Mystical Island. It'll take about 3 days. You and your friend should ask for leave first. Got it. Didira hung up happily. Wayme, are you free this weekend? Wayme looked up at Didira. Wayme and Didira were roommates. The two of them became friends on the first day of school. People of the same age always had a lot of common topics. But he was different from the lively and enthusiastic Didira. Wayme did not speak much. Both of them had similar lives. They were all orphans. But the difference was that Didira had met Chen Zhao. Wayme, on the other hand, was alone. After her parents passed away, she was sent to an orphanage. Even the tuition fees of the Magic High School were earned by herself. After a moment of silence, Wayme asked, "Where are you going?" "To Los Angeles. My uncle is going out to sea this weekend on a yacht named after me. I want to go out with you. The destination is Mysterious Island." Wayme looked forward to it, but she was hesitant. That will take a few days. 3 days. Didi pulled Wayme. Come on. That's your family gathering. I don't think it's appropriate for me. Don't worry, you're my best friend. Didi looked at Wayme with a pleading look. Wayme actually wanted to go to the Mystical Island, but her income from part-time jobs was barely enough to cover the expenses of the school. It was almost impossible to go to the Mystical Island, at least not in the short term. She wanted to see the magical creatures on the Mystical Island. "I want to see Amon, the guardian of the sea." After the documentary ended, Wayme even made a plan for the future. Going to the Mystical Island was an important part of her plan. "Okay, I'll go with you," Wayme said. "That's if we can get a day off." "No problem. Leave it to me." Wayme looked calm on the surface. But in reality, her heart was filled with excitement and anticipation. Diddley used Chen Zhao's name to ask for a leave. The magic colleges didn't know how powerful Chen Zhao was, but they knew that he was rich, especially after Chen Zhao donated a large sum of money to magic colleges. Therefore, Chen Zhao's name was quite useful. So Didira and Wayme successfully got a week off. Didira didn't like to be in a hurry. If the trip is scheduled for 3 days, it wasn't far from Los Angeles to the Mystical Island, but the yacht would take 10 hours. The round trip would take more than 20 hours, so they only had 2 days to play. In fact, including food and shelter, they could play for 1 day at most. This wasn't a trip Didira wanted, so Didira still chose to ask for a week off. She didn't have to worry about her studies. After all, she and Wayme were both outstanding in their year. They also had a lot of theoretical knowledge. Just in terms of theoretical knowledge, Didira was at least a year ahead of her peers. This was because of Chen Zhao's family atmosphere and the members of the supernatural organization who often came to visit. They would more or less talk to Didira about magic. Over time, Didira's level naturally rose a lot. As for Wayme, she was also outstanding. This was because she had a lot of practical experience. Ever since she came out of the orphanage, she had relied on her magic to survive. She had worked in almost every industry, even some illegal ones. The people she interacted with were all kinds of people. She was introverted and not good with words. In fact, she knew a little of everything. She had even worked as a temporary thug for the boss of a small casino. In the end, she couldn't help but beat the employer half to death. Only then did she quit. Didira and Wayme were like two extremes, but they were also attracted to each other like magnets. After class on Friday, the two packed their luggage and boarded the train to Los Angeles. When they arrived at the LA station, Chen Zhao was already waiting for them. "Uncle." Didira had already pounced on Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao rubbed Didira's head and looked at Wayme. "Is this your friend?" "Hi, I'm Didira's uncle. You can call me Uncle Chen." "Hi, I'm Wayme. I think you're hungry too. I asked old Jean to prepare some food. We can eat when we get home." Wayme was very reserved when facing Chen Zhao. This was her personality. She couldn't be too enthusiastic with strangers. She couldn't even let go of simple pleasantries. Sitting in Chen Zhao's SUV, she was even more nervous. Unlike Didira, Wayme could tell how valuable Chen Zhao's car was. Chapter 32:13. After returning home, Wayme couldn't even walk. This was the most luxurious house she'd ever seen. Diddla pulled Wayme into the house. His siblings all missed Didola very much. They all crowded around him. Chen Zhao arranged for Wei Mi and Didola to share a room. After closing the door and being alone with Didola, Wei Mi finally relaxed a little. Even in Didola's room, there were many things that she'd never seen before. What constant temperature? Wei Mi thought that it was just an air conditioner. Why did it have to have such a complicated name? There was also a housekeeping system that controlled all the indoor equipment. Even opening the curtains was controlled by voice. A curved floor-to-ceiling window stunned Wei Mi even more. The 30-square-meter bedroom was like a princess's castle. Wei Mi couldn't sleep. Didola couldn't sleep either. The two sat by the window, watching the night and chatting. An inferior demon brought some supper. Wei Mi thought that Didola was a princess. How could she endure the environment in the dorms? Although the environment of the magic high school was pretty good, it depended on what it was compared to. Compared to her home, the magic high school was nothing. Just then, Wei Mi saw a figure walk out of the house from the floor-to-ceiling window. Wei Mi recognized the figure. It was Didola's uncle. Didola, that's your uncle, right? Where's he going so late? Didola glanced at Chen Zhao. He's used to practicing magic at night. Wei Mi smiled. It wasn't that strange. There were many people in the spiritual world who liked to practice magic at night. After all, their practice would sometimes cause great effects. They were afraid of being seen during the day, so they were used to practicing at night. There were also some spells that could only be practiced at night. Didola's family was clearly a magic family. Wei Mi didn't find it strange. Wei Mi saw Chen Zhao step in a mirror lake and then fly away. As for where he went, Didola didn't know either. But she could tell that Didola's uncle was very powerful. After some time, it was already dawn when Wei Mi woke up. She had to admit that the environment was really too comfortable. She and Didola were asleep, wrapped in blankets by the window. Knock, knock. Just then, Feilai's voice came from outside. Didi, Wei Mi, it's time to get up. Wash up and come down for breakfast. After washing up, Didira and Vimi went downstairs. What Wei Mi saw was a more sumptuous breakfast than any holiday. Moreover, the amount was huge. Most of Didi Ra's family had a normal appetite. It was Didira's uncle. Watching him eat was like watching a war. Of course, it was normal for spiritualists to eat a lot. There was nothing strange about it. After half an hour breakfast, everyone packed their luggage and got on the bus. They arrived at the port at noon. The harbor was full of yachts. Vimi saw a huge yacht not far away. Not far from the yacht, there were still people taking photos there. Wei Mi saw that the yacht was branded with the English spelling of Didira. Even Wei Mi couldn't believe it. The yacht, which seemed to have come from the future, was named after DDRA. Obviously, this DDRA was a little beyond Wei Mi's imagination. They were heading in the direction of the yacht. Just then, Wei Mi saw a familiar face. The only reason they were familiar with each other was because the other party was Director James. You often see it on the entertainment news. It was hard not to be familiar with it. James also had many bags and didn't bring anyone with him. Chun, you're finally here. Do you know how long I've waited? I didn't want to be the first, Chen Zhao said matter-of-factly. Fuck, that's why you chose to be late. Where's Steven? He had the same idea as you. He said it an hour ago. James was speechless. You two are such asterisk souls. Chen Zhao and Steven looked at James speechlessly. James, it's not good to talk behind someone's back, Steven said. James glanced at Steven and gave him the finger. When Wei Mi saw Steven, her face was filled with excitement. Steven was already used to Wei Mi's excitement. Beautiful lady, may I know your name? Wei Mi blushed. She wasn't 15 yet. Hello. Sir, I'm Wei Mi. I'm Didira's classmate. Ha, don't be so reserved. Just treat this trip as a family gathering. That's the truth. We're all your family. Steven laughed loudly. I should be the one saying that. I'm the head of the family. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. Okay, father, please give the order. Steven looked at Chen Zhao, his eyes shifting. Let's get on the boat. Didira officially set sail. After everyone boarded the ship, DDRA took Wei Mi to visit each room. From the deck to the helipad, there was even a helicopter parked there. Then from the kitchen to the dining room, from the theater to the entertainment room, from the cockpit to the engine room, they looked at everything. The other children did the same. They were curious about every detail on the yacht. Just then, a few inferior demons crawled out from a corner. They started serving everyone on the boat. Chun, I'm serious. Sell me a few of these little guys. Sorry, I signed a 50-year contract with them. I can't change their master before that. It's a pity. These little guys are more convenient than any servant. Trust me, you only think that when you're enjoying their service. If you're suddenly woken up by them when you're sleeping, that's normal. Actually, when the inferior demons became the official servants of Chun Zhao's family, they did cause some trouble. After all, they like to do some work at night. These jobs would always make some noise. The noise would definitely cause some trouble for Chun Zhao's family. Later, Chun Zhao ordered that no work could be done after Chun Zhao's family was asleep. Apart from a few underlings on night duty, the rest of the underlings had to go to bed. Now, Chun Zhao's family was used to it. Stephen was a regular person. He saw something new and thought that the inferior demons were convenient. But when he actually used them, they might not be as good as he imagined. Of course, safety was not a concern. Inferior demons were the safest demon species in hell. There had never been an incident where an inferior demon attacked its master. Even if the master wasn't a demon, inferior demons were actually sold to many other races. Anyone who used them would say it was good. Chapter 32:14. She felt like she could spend the rest of her life on this yacht. There were almost all kinds of entertainment on the yacht. Chun Zhao, Stephen, and James were fishing and drinking at the back of the boat. Fei Lai was doing yoga with Dadaira and Wei Mi fine. Even though Dadaira and Wei Mi were both magic geniuses, they were still better than Fei Lai in yoga. Even though Dadaira and Wei Mi were magic geniuses, they were still better than Fei Lai in yoga. The children were playing like crazy. Jumping up and down was not enough to describe their craziness. The underlings were in every corner of the yacht. They used their diligent hands to do everything they could. At a normal speed, they could reach Mystical Island from Los Angeles in around 6 hours. However, Dadaira wasn't fast. It only moved at 1/3 of its original speed. Everyone was fully enjoying their time at sea. James caught a big fish. Chun Zhao and Stephen had to give James $100. James excitedly took pictures of himself and the fish and uploaded them to his social media account. Is Rasfa busy? Chun Zhao asked. He's in Japan, Stephen said. Two underlings beside him walked up to ask James. Mr. James, do you need us to prepare this fish for you? It's very good for making sashimi. James nodded. After taking the pictures, he was only interested in food. There was plenty of food on the boat. However, he still hoped to eat the fish he caught himself. The underlings carried over 2 boxes of beer. As long as they were almost done with their beer, the underlings wouldn't give Chun Zhao and the others any free time. They would immediately replenish the beer and food. This boat is really beautiful, Stephen exclaimed. You can order one too. You're more familiar with the yacht company than me. It's not like you don't know about my recent financial situation. I hope that mysterious island can help me pay off the money in the bank as soon as possible so that I have enough money to book a yacht. Even in the most difficult times, Stephen did not sell his shares of the mysterious island. He knew that Mystical Island's potential was far greater than all the assets he had now. Mr. Stephen, I remember there were more than 1 million visitors on the opening day of Mysterious Island. James was also a shareholder of Mysterious Island, so he knew the statistics of Mysterious Island. It's only for a few days, Chun Zhao said. It's starting to drop. Of course, it's impossible to maintain 2 million visitors every day. Stephen knew the business rules better than Chun Zhao. In the first few days, people were attracted by the Mysterious Island's gimmick. There are also the tourists brought by the documentary. For the Mysterious Island to continue to be popular, the first step was to make the island a tourist attraction. Currently, the Mysterious Island was developing well. Although the number of visitors had dropped, it still maintained an astonishing figure of 100,000 visitors per day. What was the concept of 100,000 visitors a day? The number of tourists in Hawaii in the past 2 years was only about 8 million. The Mysterious Island was right in the middle of Hawaii and the mainland. Geographically, the Mysterious Island was Hawaii's natural enemy. This year's outbreak of the spirit tide, coupled with the exposure of the spirit world, The promotion of Mysterious Wonder Island had attracted a large number of tourists, including many potential tourists from Hawaii. It could be said that whatever Hawaii had, the Mysterious Island had. What the Mysterious Island had might not be found in Hawaii. It could be said that the mystical island's current flow of visitors was entirely due to the right karma of time, place, and people. Moreover, the tourists who came to the Mysterious Island were all very high quality. In the first few days of opening, the daily consumption of the Mysterious Island reached $30 billion US. Although it had dropped, it still maintained a level of $5 billion per day. Out of this $5 billion, almost $100 million would go into the pockets of Chun Zhao and the other shareholders. Most of the $100 million USD income came from the rent and the shop's operating expenses. This kind of business fees could only be found in the busiest commercial areas in the world. Another part was the income from the shops they had opened on the island. This was a long-term business. The Mysterious Island was only half built. Everyone agreed to continue investing in the Mysterious Island. The profits could be seen from the Mysterious Island. Many big brands also saw the potential of the Mysterious Island. They all hoped to enter the Mysterious Island. Once these big brands entered the Mysterious Island, it would boost the island's GDP again. Stephen did some calculations. If the Mysterious Island's income could be maintained at the current level, then his annual dividend from the Mysterious Island would be equivalent to half of his life's worth of hard work. This was a terrifying amount of profit. This was also why he didn't choose to sell the Mysterious Island's shares even when he was short on funds. Another big reason was that his movie had the support of Chun Zhao's lucky coin. That was why it had been so successful. What about Chun Zhao himself? His own brewery was proof enough. It was almost the most profitable company in the world. What about the Mysterious Island, which had such a huge investment? Would Chun Zhao just watch as Mysterious Island suffered losses? The result was obvious. As long as he followed Chun Zhao, he definitely wouldn't lose money. Stephen had never shared this idea with anyone else. In the past few months, he'd been extremely depressed because of the lack of funds. But the feeling now was completely different. For Stephen, he was lying on his bed, and money kept raining down from the sky. No, it wasn't a rain of money. It was a rain of gold ingots. This feeling of making money every day was amazing. They didn't have to worry about losing money at all. It seemed that they just had to follow behind Chun Zhao. There was no need to worry about losses. This was why he'd suggested last time that Chun Zhao could help him come up with a plan. He wanted to think of a project that no one in the spiritual world had been involved in yet. Now, he was even more determined about this project. After he'd had enough fun this time, he'd start the project immediately. He'd start the project as soon as possible. Now, the management of the Mysterious Island had been handed over to a board of directors formed by the shareholders. According to the news from the board of directors, the Mysterious Island was almost the most popular investment project in the world. Those with power were asking if they could invest in the Mysterious Island. Those without power wanted to buy some shops or land. But now, who among the shareholders of the Mysterious Island would sell their shares at a time like this? Only a fool would do such a thing. Everyone was holding on to the shares of Mysterious Island. If this trend continued, the Mysterious Island's GDP could very well exceed $1 trillion. This was a shocking potential. It meant that the money they took from the bank would be more than their net worth. Chapter 32:15. Stephen made up his mind not to invest recklessly anymore. The investment theory he had learned couldn't compare to following in Chun Zhao's footsteps. Back then, Chun Zhao hadn't been as rich as him, but in just 3 years, Chun Zhao's wealth had far surpassed his. They spent the night on the yacht and arrived at the mystical island at 10 o'clock the next day. When they saw the coastline of the mystical island, there were already more ships around. The first phase of the Mysterious Island airport had just been completed. The airport's capacity was still very limited. Therefore, the main mode of transportation was by boat. There are thousands of yachts in the harbor. Although it was busy, it was orderly. It only took a few hours to get here from Los Angeles. Many of them had private yachts. Even renting it for a day would only cost a few $100s. Therefore, there were tens of thousands of yachts coming and going every day. There was also the cruise ship, which brought 20 to 30,000 tourists every day. At the same time, the same number of tourists would board the cruise ship here. The airport's throughput was about the same. There were also a few sailboats. It was said that the American national team came here for vacation and training. Although it had only been open for half a month, the mysterious island had already shown its amazing potential. Everything here was unbelievably prosperous. The Diddla docked at the harbor. The Didira's outstanding appearance attracted many people's attention. Stephen and James were both wearing hats and sunglasses. Just then, the board of directors found them. They had already heard that a few major shareholders were coming today. Stephen's representative came to greet them. Mr. Stephen, Mr. Chun, Mr. James, hello. Hello, Wooler. Stephen nodded. Do you have any plans? Woolu glanced at them. How about we go to the hotel first? There were now more than 10 hotels on the mystical island, 2 of which belonged to Dell. Have someone send our luggage back to the hotel, Chun Zhao said. We're not here to stay. Okay. How about we go to the special rental company first? Woolu said. Chun Zhao, Stephen, and James all knew about the special rental company. This special rental company specialized in renting transportation. However, it wasn't an ordinary vehicle, but an animal. It was a special marine creature on the island. These sea creatures were all very big. Currently, they had developed 2 types of transportation. One was the giant crayfish. The other one was the Titan crab. Both of these giant creatures were extremely large. They were over 3 meters tall and weighed more than a ton. This was a rare opportunity for most tourists to get close to the creatures on the magical island. Renting this kind of transportation was not cheap. However, even if it was an expensive rental fee, still it could not stop the tourists who flocked to it. The daily turnover of the special leasing company alone was more than $30 million. The profits were even more astonishing. When everyone arrived at the special rental company, under Wu Li's lead, everyone entered the company. Half of the area was seawater, and from time to time, crayfish would pop out of the water. The caretaker would strike the gong on the shore, and a few giant crayfish would emerge from the water and climb ashore. Then, the staff put the giant crayfish on the cart and threw some food into the giant crayfish. The strength of the giant crayfish was very great. Even if it was hooked up to the carriage, it was not strenuous at all. Each cart could seat a driver and 3 passengers. The driver skillfully controlled the giant crayfish's movements. He could even stop and turn as he pleased. However, the giant crayfish's movement speed was not fast. Vimy and Diddla rode in the same car. Both Weemy and Didira enjoyed the wonderful journey. These giant crayfish could drive on the road. In fact, there were no cars with gasoline engines on the island. Most of them were electric sightseeing cars. There were also helicopters. Most of the cars on the streets were sightseeing cars. The smaller ones could also carry a family. The larger ones were the big buses. They were all slow models. Of course, no one who came to the island would be in a hurry. The island itself was not big. Usually, a family would come to the island and rent a sightseeing car. Of course, apart from the rental business, the mysterious island also had another business, which was the wedding photo business. Apart from the professional team, the island also had a unique resource. The giant sea animals with divine artifacts would be great supporting characters. They were also very obedient and could fulfill the photographer's requirements. Everyone rode the giant crayfish or Titan crab to the restaurant. This was their second stop. The restaurant was opened by Chun Zhao. Maybe it was because Chun Zhao liked food, or maybe he was more experienced. The restaurant provided the best ingredients. Of course, there were also some indescribable ingredients. These ingredients were extremely delicious, but at the same time, they were so expensive that it made one's hair stand on end. Nevertheless, anyone who had eaten here once would not complain about the price. They would also think that it was worth it and only hope that they could come again. It was Weemy's first time. She almost swallowed her tongue. Just then, an announcement appeared on the restaurant's projection screen. According to the news from the League of Defender, Guardian Amon has just risen from the bottom of the sea and risen into the sky. He is expected to fly over the island in 3 minutes. Tourists on the island, you will have the honor of witnessing Guardian Amon's first appearance since the opening of the island. All the tourists looked up at the sky. Soon, they saw a black shadow appear in the sky not far away. The shadow blocked out the sun, and a huge shadow covered the entire mystical island. Amon was even larger than the island itself. He was like a flying continent. He flapped his huge wings and flew over the island. Everyone cheered with their hands in the air. To them, they were the luckiest. They had the honor of witnessing Guardian Amon's appearance. Amon let out a loud and clear voice. Although it was loud, it was filled with peace. It was as if he was responding to the cheers of the tourists on the island. After flying over the island, Amon dove into the sea. Of course, there were also a few helicopters following Amon. Even when Amon sank into the water, he still lingered above the sea reluctantly. One had to admit that as the king of popularity on the island, Amon's charm was too great. Or rather, it was the image that the media had created for him that gave him a unique popularity. Many film companies even contacted the island's board, hoping to use Amon's image in their productions. Chapter 32:16. Then Chun Zhao's family returned to the hotel to rest. Chun Zhao, Stephen, and James went to the board meeting. They didn't come to play this time. They also wanted to understand the specific situation of Mysterious Island. First, they looked at the financial report. Stephen's head hurt. It wasn't because the report looked bad. It was because it was too good. He'd invested in many companies over the years. Whether it was real or fake, he'd never seen such a good report. All of their projects were profitable like crazy. The number of customers kept increasing too. It didn't seem that obvious. The number of customers increased by hundreds or thousands every day. However, many a little makes a mickle. This momentum was very good. They'd originally planned to use all the profits for the first 3 years without dividends. But looking at the report, if they didn't pay dividends in the first year, the investment would only be accumulated in Mysterious Island's account. If they changed their mind and used some of it as dividends, they would definitely accumulate a lot of cash. Chun Zhao didn't care. He already had a lot of cash. So, it didn't matter if he was tired or not. But Stephen couldn't bear to see cash in his bank account. As long as he had cash, he couldn't help but use it to invest. As long as he had cash, he couldn't help but invest it. This is a kind of pain and happy feeling. He'd never made such a successful investment before. Mysterious Island's investment was probably the best one he'd made in his life. Chun Zhao also looked at Mysterious Island's account. In terms of profitability, Mysterious Island couldn't compare to Mountain Beer right now. However, that was only temporary because Dashin Beer had reached its production capacity limit and its market share had also reached its limit. This year, it fluctuated every quarter. Mysterious Island was different. It was at a low point now, but it was already showing unparalleled profitability. It could be predicted that as long as it could maintain this growth, Mysterious Island would become the most profitable project. Chun Zhao wasn't a professional financial expert, so he could only get a rough idea. This roughly meant the profit figure at the end. He couldn't give any development suggestions. Chun Zhao's team could take care of these things. Chun Zhao only needed to know that Mysterious Island was developing well. Then Chun Zhao met Felwood Scott. Felwood Scott knew that Chun Zhao had come to Mysterious Island. He came directly from Los Angeles. He also brought detailed information. Felwood Scott was currently working on several major projects on the mystical island. Naturally, he also made a lot of money from these projects. The airport and the reclamation project were the projects he was responsible for. The first phase of the airport project had been completed, and the second phase would be completed in the first half of next year. Moreover, judging from the current situation, the original 3 phases of the project were far from enough to satisfy the passenger flow of the Mysterious Island. Currently, the number of flights to and from Mysterious Island simply could not satisfy the number of passengers on the island. Therefore, it was necessary to increase the size of the airport. Felwood Scott certainly wouldn't let this piece of meat fly away from his mouth. The other one was the public facilities project on the mystical island. It was also a very large amount of work. From Felwood Scott, Chun Zhao learned the specific progress of the projects he was in charge of. Felwood Scott realized that ever since he'd met Chun Zhao, his career had been on the rise. In just 3 years, a small engineering company had transformed into the largest engineering company in California. It was one of the top companies in the United States. Now, if he participated in the bidding for any project, as long as he reported that his company was the contractor of a certain project on the mystical island, under the same conditions, his company would almost certainly win. This was the benefit brought about by popularity. It was all green money. After learning that Chen Zhao was only here to have fun and would stay for a few days, Marquis was shocked. Felwoodsko also decided to spend a few days on Mysterious Island. Wilmy and Diddela went out to play together. They had originally listed out a lot of travel guides. However, they spent the entire afternoon playing in the ocean zoo. Even though it was just an ocean zoo, it was enough to make them enjoy it so much that they forgot to leave. There are a lot of interesting projects here. There were also many projects that could interact with marine life. In the entire Mysterious Island, apart from the special rental company that was used as a means of transportation, this was the only place where one could have close contact with marine life. There was even a marine biology research institute on the island that was open to tourists. Ever since marine biologist Isaac had been recruited by Chen Zhao, he'd been Chen Zhao's loyal lackey. He was in charge of studying marine life and was also responsible for the profits and losses of the research institute. Even though it was a research institute, it still had strong profitability. This was because many tourists had a strong interest in these marine creatures. Isaac was quite happy with the way things were. Chen Zhao offered him a generous salary. At the same time, he also had a share of the profits of this research institute. Moreover, it was the only officially recognized research institute on Mysterious Island. This caused his reputation in the industry to skyrocket. If other marine biology experts wanted to obtain research samples, they had to go through his review. If he wasn't happy, even the American government wouldn't be able to do anything. This also caused Isaac to listen to Chen Zhao's every word. Sometimes, Chen Zhao would ask him to publish a research report that contained his personal information. Isaac would carry it out without a single mistake. This was because he knew very well who brought him his current wealth and fame. When he heard that Chen Zhao's adopted daughter and friend were going to visit the institute, he brought them into an area that wasn't open to the public. Whatever they wanted to see, Isaac let them in without saying anything. It took Wilmy and Diddela a whole day to visit a marine biology zoo. Wilmy's horizons had also been broadened in these 2 days. It wasn't enough for rich people to just rely on their imagination. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they definitely wouldn't be able to understand it. When they went out, they didn't call a car. When they left the hotel lobby, the car was already parked outside. When they went to a high-end restaurant, other people had to wait in line, but they went in directly. It was as if Mysterious Island belonged to their family. Other people were here for a vacation, but their family was here to visit the back garden. What they looked forward to the most was that Chen Zhao would arrange for them to have close contact with him on. Wilmy didn't think that Chen Zhao could even arrange something like this. She was very excited. After all, after watching the documentary, she was completely infatuated with Amon. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.